Love answering your questions during the live safaris. It's my favorite part. It feels like you're on the vehicle with me and I'm able to teach you exactly what you want to know. If you want to ask a question on Wild Earth, then you need to register on our website. Once registered, you must go to the live safari page and ask your question below the live feed.
This program features live coverage of an African safari and may include animal kills and carcasses. Viewer discretion is advised.
A very good morning to all our viewers from all over the world. And look what we have first up this morning. A beautiful young lioness, flat in the road. And it is a stunning morning here at Ngala. A little bit brisk this morning, but I think it's going to be quite a warm day here. And you can see how she's flat. It is the same lioness that we had last night briefly. And she's moved quite a big distance to where she is now. I think she's been searching for the pride the whole night. Good morning again, everyone. My name is Nick, and behind camera we've got Odie this morning. And welcome to Ngala. It is a stunning lioness that we found this morning, and she is moving around, and we actually found her pretty much right outside our camp this morning. We were on a mission to get to a new part of the reserve, and she was lying in the road and blocked us off a little bit. But welcome everyone to your very own live safari from the African bush. So I think this young lioness, we did see her last night quite far from here, and she was contact calling consistently. I think she's desperately searching for the pride, and it's quite a sad sight because if you have a look carefully, you'll see she is looking quite skinny, and she doesn't look the happiest. Me and Odie are feeling quite bad for her this morning. The area that she was in last night, where she was contact calling, is the area where we think part of the pride is, and the area that she's moved to now is where we think the other part of the pride is, outside of Bengala though. She's probably spent a lot of the night last night moving around as much as possible, trying to cover as big a distance as possible and calling as much as possible to try and see if she can't find where the rest of the pride is. Unfortunately for her case, she has not managed to find the pride, and I did have quite a good look at her face. There's no blood on her face, and her stomach looks no fuller than last night. So it doesn't look like she's managed to catch anything. But welcome again, and to a lovely morning at Ngala. It really is a beautiful morning, and I think it's going to heat up quite a lot this morning. In terms of the other guides across the other properties, I think Tristan will be looking for leopard this morning. Trishala says she's going on a bumble, also looking for some leopards and elephants. And Twalu, I think they are looking for, the meerkats. They're going to the meerkats this morning, which should be exciting. Hopefully Joanne is able to get some nice views of them. Kim is going on a bumble, looking for anything she can find at Pinder, and Steve at Pridelands is also looking for some lions. So I'm hoping that he has as much luck as us this morning and is able to find a lion relatively quickly. We are in the eastern part of Ngala, just outside the and beyond Ngala's tented camp. And what a start to the morning. It really is quite special. She has not, since we saw her, her head was up and she did make 1 or 2 contact calls, but since that she has gone flat. So you can imagine with her moving around so much, she is quite exhausted. And because she hasn't had food, the energy just continues to drain out of her. But for now, we're going to just show you what the weather holds for us at all the different properties today.
Good morning everybody. Welcome to Pridelands Eco Training here in the Battelier Greater Kruger National Park, where my name is Steve and I'm joined by Johan on camera, and we are as always very excited to be out with you this morning. We would love to hear from you, and while we're going to be out and about looking for Lagatha the lioness that we actually saw last night, she was right here on our way back from game drive. We had a little run-in with Painted Dog TV gentleman, VM and Brent Lear Smith. And then we heard a little bit of contact calling, and then we went and found her. She was just around the corner. So we're going to see if she is out and about. It sounds like quite a sad story that she's all on her own. Poor thing. Sorry about my head there. But what's not a sad story, everybody, is the age of time. That is the mountains you see in front of you there. The Drakensberg. It's a Dutch word. Draken is a dragon, and Berg is mountain. So it's basically Dragon's Back Mountain. It goes all the way around South Africa and basically forms the plateau, which creates the high veld versus the low veld. It's not just one sort of line, but it is what the high veld is. It's one massive, big, elevated area versus this area we find ourselves in being the low veld. And veld is another word that you can translate to be rangeland, or what we also call the bush. So the high bush or high rangeland, or the low rangeland where we find ourselves. And obviously the higher you go up, the more extreme temperatures can be with regards to coldness and frost, and the lower you go down, the warmer things get. That's why it's always so lovely at the ocean. Always so lovely down at the coast. It's always nice and warm, and that's why people go skiing in the mountains. Such a beautiful day. So the temperatures today are going to be lovely and warm, about 26 degrees Celsius, 60 to 70 degrees Fahrenheit, and there's no rain forecast, which is a very good sign. Last night was wonderful, just bumbling around and trying to find our way. Explored a fair section of this eastern should I say, western part of Pridelands. We're going to continue on. Lagatha was seen very close to this area last night. When she was left, should I say. We saw her just on the left of us. And apparently she likes to come out into this open area where we saw the wildebeest and zebra last night and just smash animals. Brent described it as she likes to run through here until she trips over an animal. Yeah. So maybe we'll find her with an animal, and I'm sure she won't just be cuddling it. She'll probably be eating it if we do find that. They're very efficient hunters on their own, to be fair. They behave like leopards. And while talking about leopards, the leopard whisperer himself would like to say good morning.
Well, Stephen, not very much whispering of leopards has been taking place the last few days. We've been struggling a little bit, and partly because of all of these that we're seeing. This is lion tracks that are everywhere again. They've been hunting buffalo all over the place. We've seen where they've been chasing buffalo, and we're following their tracks. You can see where one's just had a drink, and now we're going to try and see if we can find them. They've gone a long way already, and like I say, lots and lots of buffalo that have been chased. We'll try and figure out where they've gone and whether or not they were successful. It seems like they're just kind of tailing a single buffalo bull at the moment into Buffelshoek itself. My name's Tristan. On camera, I've got Cloney this morning, and hopefully we're going to have some success with these lions. They've given us the runaround a little bit. We've had lots and lots of tracks of the Talamatis, but we just haven't been able to find them, which has been a little bit on the frustrating side. It's obviously the nature of the beast at the moment. It's difficult from a point of view that we can't off roads, so if they're not on the roads itself, there's very little we can actually do. But the tracks are so clear when they're on the roads. It's so nice to follow them, and the whole road just becomes this kind of mush of little paw prints, or big paw prints in this case. So it makes it quite easy to follow, and I'm hoping that they haven't gone too far. I'm hoping that they're lying up somewhere here close by, but knowing the Talamatis, they can cover some serious distance when they want to. So it looks like potentially they've stopped hunting. The track now is very different to what it was just now. Now it's just walking straight along the road. When they're hunting, you'll find that the tracks go off the road, onto the road, off the road, onto the road, and you're seeing buffalo evidence kind of crossing both sides, whereas now the tracks are just running linear on both sides of the road, and this is more indicative of a pride on the move. All right, I'm going to try and see if I can find these guys. Hopefully they won't be too far away. The tracks are getting really fresh now. So while I do that, let's send you across to Trishala to say good morning.
Oh, best of luck to Tristan to find those lions. It seems like exciting things were happening. Down here we have another wider, paradise wider. We saw one yesterday, and when we were watching it, remember, we heard alarm calls, and then we saw the lion. But now we're quite close to the den, so maybe we'll hear alarm calls. I mean, there are people at the den. Well, not people, hyenas. I'm a person, though. My name is Trishala, and I have Darren on camera with me this morning on Juma Game Reserve, and we're looking forward to finding some critters at the den. Now, last night when I came around, they were not around, but perhaps we'll be a little bit luckier today. So let's go. I'm not superstitious. Sometimes I find that when I they're around, although yesterday it was not the case, and it appears I'm going to have to stay like this. Anyway, one of the reasons I love to be here at the hyena den is to listen out to sound, so that's what I'm going to do.
As many of you know by now, one of our beloved leopard characters, Hukumuri, recently passed away. I would like to invite you to join me on Saturday, the 20th of February, as I take an intimate look into his life and pay tribute to the incredible cat that he was. I'm looking forward to seeing you around the fire at 7:30 p.m. Central African Time.
converging game path will invariably lead you to a water source, but treat all water as suspect. One of my favorite ways of purifying water is to filter out the particulates. And by just filtering it through your sock, you can clear out most of those. You can put water into a snail shell and you can boil it over a fire or using a chemical like chlorine or colloidal silver.
My name is Steve, and one of my favorite things at Wild Earth is getting questions from you. The type of questions that I really like are those ones that really help us to unpack and understand and really integrate the ecological knowledge and fully appreciate the importance that animals such as these Cape buffalo bring to the ecosystem. If you want to ask a question on Wild Earth, you're going to have to register on the website. But once registered, just head on over to the live safari page and enter your question under the live feed.
Look at this, the little one is up and about. Certainly hasn't had enough milk at this age. No amount of milk is enough. Oh, Corky. Too sweet. Oh, look at this. That is stunning.
Tune into Wild Earth every single day. It's in your nature.
What makes Anbeyond Pinder Private Game Reserve so special is our massive array of habitats. And with that comes, of course, a beautiful diversity of landscapes, but also an incredible biodiversity in terms of plants, bird life and animal life, as well as, of course, our conservation success stories with cheetah, with rhinos, now with pangolins too.
Catch up with the guides daily here on Wild Earth.
So as you can see, the lioness still hasn't stood up or moved, but have a look at how her paw is covering her face. Almost like she's hiding from us. I think it must be a few flies that are bothering her. You can see on her front left leg that is covering her face. Have a look at those spots. Yeah, it shows us that she is a younger lion. They tend to lose those spots as they get a little bit older. And this is one of the young lionesses or the sub-adults from the Birmingham Pride. And finding her on her own like this, moving around on her own and desperately looking for the rest of the Pride, really makes us wonder what is going on with the Birmingham Pride at the moment. It's been such a easy Pride to follow. They've been so consistent in their movements. In the last couple of weeks, we've been struggling to get a grip on exactly what's going on with the Pride. The Ross males we haven't seen together, the Pride we haven't seen together in, I would say, almost 25 days now. So it is an interesting time for us at Ngala. One has to feel for this young lioness as she continues to search for the Pride. After a long night of searching, she might have tried to hunt here and there where there were opportunities. She definitely didn't catch anything last night, but she has been walking up and down, patrolling and searching. And I think her calls and her calls looking for the rest of the Pride. The rest of the Pride just must not have heard it yet. But she is, if I had to pinpoint where the Pride is from where I think they are, she's pretty much in between the two groups of the Birmingham Pride. So she's not in a terrible area to look for them. I think she just needs a little bit of luck with some of the other lionesses, maybe some of the younger males, the white ones. Maybe if they come a bit closer to her, they'll hear her calls and answer. But I think it's that same one that you got with Tessa the other night as well. So she's been on her own now for close to 5-6 days. And we're just hoping that she is able to continue to feed herself and catch something along the way as well. This morning it's still nice and cool. She's lying in the middle of the road because there's a very light breeze blowing, but she's nicely in the shade there, and it's still a nice cool temperature so she can rest. But as soon as that sun does get a little bit higher, you can see the beautiful sunlight coming through on the grass just behind her. That sun is going to start shining down on her in the road, and I'm guessing from here she's not going to move too far. I think she'll just be looking for a little bit of shade where she can potentially rest up for the day. So Justine, I don't think this lioness has any cubs at the moment. So you can't see her teats now, but if we could, I'd show you them and just point out that they're not yet swollen, so no indication of her having cubs. And she is still a very young lioness. She's only about 2 years and 2 months, maybe between 2 years and 2 months to 2 years and 4 months, somewhere around there. And they only tend to start breeding a little bit later, maybe about 2.5 years earliest to 3 years. I don't know if you remember at Ngala, the young lioness who's got the 2 older cubs, she was about 3.5 when she had her very first litter. So I think this lioness is still a little bit of got a little bit of a way before she starts to breed. But it is a good way of thinking about it, because often with lionesses on their own, especially if they've got cubs, that's when you'll tend to see them on their own, because they need to move independently of the pride. They need to be continuously going back to those cubs, and those cubs won't be able to move big distances as well. That lioness that we've seen with the 3 small cubs on Ngala in the Birmingham Pride, she's been moving completely independently of the pride for almost maybe even 3.5 months. She spent a couple weeks looking for den sites, potential areas to give birth, and then after that she has been completely focused on the cubs. She's had no interest in joining the rest of the pride. I think we've seen her with that one group of the Birmingham Pride once, but other than that she's been completely focused on the youngsters and looking after them and making sure that they are okay. Our plan for this morning was to head into the west to one of the larger watering holes that we have, just because we haven't been able to get there with the river being... Oh, look at that. Big stretch. So what we're going to do, just watch her groom for a little bit and see if she doesn't get up. If she does lie down again, I think we're going to move on from here. We don't want to spend too much time with the sleeping lion, and I'm sure she's not going to move too far this morning, but we're going to send you over to Charla for now.
Look at this special girl. I was so glad that she was around, our beautiful Tlalamba. I came down the hyena den, and then there was nothing happening there. And then I just thought of her, because I remember coming to Treehouse Dam before and just sitting and watching and waiting. And she showed herself, and I was hoping that she would again. And there she was. There that gorgeous girl was. So excited to see her. So excited to see some spots. Now, obviously, we can't off-road, so we're going to have to just try to get whatever visuals are possible. Luckily, we are on a road. Okay, she's going to come out. A road we can actually move on. Because if she moves across the dam or anything like that, then we're not going to be able to follow her. So let's just enjoy this. I needed to move forward unless she comes round that other side. FC, can I try and move forward just a little bit so we can get her drinking there? Let's hope. Let's hope. Oh, where'd you sit down now? Oh, there she is. Okay, this is as far as I can go. Darren, you should be able to see her right there. She's at the bottom of the bush. There we go. Yay! We are still together and you still have me. She's looking a little full, I must say. I'm glad to see it. She's looking great. Oh, there's nothing like that feeling. That feeling that I wanted to see her so badly. I've actually been painting a picture of her. And hello, gorgeous girl. I've been painting a picture of you. Yeah. Oh, it makes me so happy. I'm sure all of you are absolutely ecstatic too. I want you to listen to the silence. So quiet. Not a sign that there's a leopard out here on the prowl. Michael, you are so happy to see her. So am I. Well, she's going to move out of our view now. So we are going to have to move. So she takes that corner. Things are just a little unstable here, so of course we want the best visuals for as long as possible with her, which is why we're trying not to move too much. But now I'm going to have to move. So we're going to give it a try. Well, Yuan and Swallow would like to say hello. So how about you go say hi to him, and I'll catch up with our Talaba.
Not having signal.
Because they're not acknowledging it.
Yeah.
Should carry on and see if we get.
We don't get any on Juma. I found one little one like this one, so I was like, what is this? And then I identified it as a baby corkwood. Welcome. We are still here on Impala Plains, aptly named Impala Plains, with these impalas just on our left-hand side. We're just trying to see if there's any tracks of this lioness that have come through and out. The impalas are all bunching. They're all bunched on this side of Impala Plains, on the southern side, so on the northern side, my apologies. We're just going to go around again onto the southern side there by the drainage. You see a single lioness on her own. It's very possible to make a kill. Very possible to make a kill. But I don't know what the hyena density is like in this area. I reckon it's pretty big. So if she did make a kill, I reckon she gets a bit of a hard time from hyena. But an impala male of that size, perfect meal for a lone lioness. Of course, he's going to have a number 2 on camera. So there, we're going to go check the tree line just behind at the back there. Some nice sandy patches on the other side. We checked the western side now. We didn't have anything crossing. We've got our group of wildebeest that went north into the opposite property that seemed to be slowly meandering back, which gives us an indication that the lioness was probably on the southern side there by the tree line. But a while ago. I haven't yet found a track, but there are some pretty hard patches around here. So it's going to be a nice morning of figuring things out, trying to find our way through. Minima, apparently her parents were killed, or her mom was killed, and so she's been on her own since 8 months or a year. I think Brent told me that last night. So there was no being kicked out of any pride. She just doesn't have anyone else. Prides don't generally kick out lionesses. It doesn't normally happen like that. They just will find themselves in a small pride, and then something happens, and then members of that pride are killed. And lion deaths are a reality. Males will kill other lionesses. Lionesses will kill other lionesses. Lionesses can get caught up in all sorts of trouble with hyena. It is a brutal world out there, everybody, but she is doing exactly what she's designed to do, and she's surviving. And we saw her last night, and she looked very, very fit, very strong. And all she's got to do is do what the Shimungwe lioness in Juma, in sort of Simbambili side does, and that's just hunt efficiently on your own. You don't have to hunt big prey, so there's not the risk of injuring yourself. And impala, yeah, there's still chance of injuring, but it's probably a far easier bet and a much better meal than a zebra or wildebeest, which are both a lot more powerful. And although you might not think a zebra or wildebeest are that strong, in comparison to impala, they are phenomenally much stronger. And when an animal's fighting for its life, everybody, with horns and hooves, there's always the risk of injury. Always the risk of injury. Okay, well, we're going to search for Lagatha, the lioness. We send you over to Nick, who's had lots of luck already and has one of his own.
So have a listen. I was just seeing she has been contact calling a little bit. You can see that she's moved off the road into the grass just next to the road. Have a look how her ears are pricked. I might be able to just hear her very gently calling. She carefully calls and then looks around in all directions, listening very carefully to hear if she can maybe get a response from one of the other pride members, or if there is another lion calling in any direction. I think she'd be happy to hear it. It's amazing. It almost looks like she's pining for the rest of the pride. And you can imagine with them being such social cats, they really do need to spend time with the rest of their pride so that they can bond. Quite a sad call to hear. She's really struggling. She's not calling very loud because she doesn't have that much energy at the moment. And calling loud takes a lot of energy from a lion, especially from a lioness. So she's gently calling in the tracks. Me and Odie had a look at the road, and the tracks are going up and down. So she's been walking up and down this road all night, looking for any lions from the rest of her pride. And we saw she was lying flat, probably just resting up, gaining that little bit of energy that she needs to make a few calls. Move now into the sun, and the sun's still not up too high yet, so it's not heating up as of yet, but I'm sure a little bit later she's going to move off into one of these thickets around us and rest for the day, and then probably start what she's been doing for the last few nights again this evening, searching for the rest of the pride. Grass actually not too long in this area, but have a look how well camouflaged she is. Can barely see her head and her body through the grass. So, I mean, she does have that option of trying to ambush something this time of year when she is able to hide in the grass like this. And at the age she is at, she should be capable of hunting. I mean, she's watched Mom and the other lionesses of the pride hunting over and over again. So she should be able to catch something, even if it is something small like an impala lamb or a young wildebeest. I think we're all crossing fingers that she will get something to eat maybe tonight. Have a listen now. I think those last few calls that came out in a bit of desperation, I don't think too many lions would have heard them around us. It was not very loud at all. She almost disappeared into the grass. She's got her head down. I don't know if you saw her moving her head around a little bit there as well. So those flies are still all over her face. And that's what she was doing with her paw a little bit earlier, just covering her nose and any exposed areas to prevent the flies from irritating her. And amazing how camouflage she is, as I mentioned before. If we were on drive and we didn't know that she was here and she didn't pick her head up, obviously she's right next to the road, so she'd probably move past. But without that head being picked up, you will not see her at all. See how she picked her head up there? Just having a listen myself. Definitely wasn't a lion calling, but it almost sounded like there was a single alarm call from somewhere east of our position. I wonder if maybe there's an impala behind a bush there that we can't see, but it could also be alarming at something else that is in the area. They haven't continued alarming, so I don't think there is anything too serious around. It could have just got a fright at something and given one snort off. So this lioness as well is the same age or very similar age to the young white male and his brother and cousin. And that could be another reason why they've started to split up so much. Those young, we've got one lioness denning, there's one lioness that looks like she's pregnant, almost ready to start denning as well. The three young males, including the Birmingham young male, which I'm hoping will leave with the white lion and his two companions. They've started to move around. Potentially looking to leave the pride. But for now, I think what we might do is we might leave this lioness, let her be for the day, and try to catch up with her a little bit later. We're going to send you over to Pinda and Kim, who's quite keen to say hello.
Good morning and welcome to And Beyond Pinda. We found a beautiful big herd of buffalo, and in amongst them is two white rhinos. There's a cow and her calf right in the middle of the herd. And there's been some interesting action, firstly with interacting between the white rhino and the buffaloes. For the most part, they seem very much just happy with one another, but then every now and again the cow does chase some of the buffaloes away. And then another interesting thing that's happened is this big bull that you can see quite close to the front here, he's just, looks like he's kind of, I don't actually know what he's doing, but he kind of came in from quite far away, and I wasn't sure whether or not he was actually part of the herd, but there you go, yeah, he was testing the urine of one of the cows, and now you see him phlegm and grimacing to test whether she's ready to mate. Yeah, but it's a beautiful scene to start our day with. I'm Kim, and behind camera we've got Simon. We're quite chuffed because we actually started off with a buffalo and some rhinos, and then we didn't have any signal, so we couldn't come to you. But here, this is actually even prettier than our last scene. And it's always nice when we've got some interesting action going on. So the rhino, and then also this bull who seems to be throwing his weight around. Like I said, I wasn't sure that he was even a part of the herd, and I was quite interested to see what happened when he got here. But he's already been greeted by some of the other males in the herd, and nothing has been too aggressive. Everyone seems to be quite okay with his presence, so maybe he was just off in the area checking that everything was okay. Wow, and if you just, I don't know, Simon, if you can zoom into his head, you'll be able to see how on the top of his horns, which we call the boss, there's so much chipped away horn where he's had lots of big fights. And from the collision of one boss against that of another buffaloes, pieces of the horn have actually chipped away. Sure, he is an extremely impressive animal. I mean, look at the width of his neck behind his horns. And just even the way he presented himself to the herd. I mean, we saw him coming from a mile away. We're sitting in on one hill, and there's a kind of a valley with another hill a little bit further off behind us. And we just saw him coming down that other hill, and he was beelining straight for the herd, and he didn't falter, not even until he got into the herd. Like, walked through, chased a few cows out of the way, greeted a few of the other males rather kind of abruptly, and snorted a little bit, showed his authority, and then carried on with what he's doing now. So now he's just feeding. You can see he's reached his destination. Like I said, he came here very directly. Now that he's arrived, he's just quite happily feeding. And we also saw him checking one of the females' urine. But also very, very cool to have white rhino and buffalo in one sighting, and not even like off to the side, but right in amongst. It's very cool. Okay, I'm quite happy to actually stick with these buffalo. I think that I want to see what transpires with the rhino. One looks like it's actually sitting down, but I think we're going to hang around for a little bit and see if there are any changes. But for now, we're going to send you over to Steve, who's got something small to show you.
Thanks, Kim. Well, we had something small, a little LBJ. It was one of our larks. And I didn't really get a good chance to identify him. He flew away. But I do know one. I do know that lark. I think it's a red-capped lark. There's another bird here at 3 o'clock, just in the bottom of this bush. I think I know what it is already, without even looking. Yeah. While I try scan through. There we go. There's a red-backed shrike all the way from Europe, everybody. They're going to be filling themselves up with insects. There's a male red-backed shrike. That's not the one I was talking about. That's a very easily identified bird. But these lovely larks that we find, we've always got to spend time with larks, because quite often all that you can go with is a little bit of a line here and maybe a little bit of a cap there, and sometimes the call. But we're still sort of in this area scratching around for our lioness, and it's a nice time to be quiet and to just listen, do some birding, and let the animals that are around make some noises. I think it was a rufous-naped lark. I'm just going to play it and see if this sounds like it. Yeah. Sounds like the rufous-naped lark. There's only so many larks that you find in these areas, so it's not like going to the Karoo or the Fynbos areas where there's larks that you really struggle. I'm actually wanting to go on a course, an LBJ course, one that helps you identify warblers or larks, because you might think, oh, but come on, Steve, you know how to bird. Everybody, there are so many LBJs. If you've never heard the term before, LBJ, it's a nice term given to all the little brown jobs, those ones that you don't often hear. or see very well. So there's still a few larks and warblers I haven't yet identified on my list. It's probably Palearctics and warblers which are lacking. Oh wow, let's have a look over here on this termite mound over here, and there's some very small little, what look like little coursers. Oh, hello. I think it's a Temnix. There's two of them. There's one there and there's one on the left. But let's have a little look at this. Temnix course, everybody. I've seen them on Djuma once before, but very nice to see the little Temnix. One of them is an adult and one's a juvenile. Very nice to see. Okay, well, we're going to spend some time doing some birding in this open area while we try to track down our lioness, and we're going to send you over to Djuma and my good friend Trishala.
And that is the last little bit of Tlalamba we're going to get as she goes off into the bush. That was thick, right? The bush is so thick, and it's going to be very difficult to follow her. But we're going to... So we're quite close to the road, so we're just going to be alongside the road and see if we get just a tiny bit more of a visual. There was an impala that was close by that we thought maybe she would go for, and we had to just kind of stand, park and wait for her, hoping that she would pop out again. Let's see. Always good advice to look at where the tourists are looking in other vehicles if you can't see what it is. Okay, so they see something. Let's see if our cameras can get it too. See her. In this grass, it's just so difficult. I told you that in this grass, when I walk away for too far, you're not going to see me. Because I'm terribly tall myself, you know. So this grass is very tall. Okay, let's have a last look in that direction, because I think that we have lost our goal for the morning. I'm just very glad to see her, see how healthy she looks. She looks quite robust, quite chunky, and I like that. And of course, she's just stunning. Beautiful, beautiful girl. Happy to be able to share this moment with you, but we're going to go off and look for something else.
When on safari, there's nothing better than an evening spent under the stars chatting around a fire, with the sounds of the wild all around you. If you sign up to be a Wild Earth Explorer, you can build your own memories by joining our guides for regular fireside chats. Subscription payments can be made by PayPal, credit card, and now bank transfer. Wild Earth Explorers, it's in your nature.
Being a safari driver requires some serious multitasking ability. You've got to be able to talk, look at the road, steer, and occasionally get the vehicle into the right gear.
Do not crash into any trees. Oh, that's a dozy.
Just jump into the car and hope for the best, and you'll see where it takes you. No, I'm just kidding.
I'm surprised they're moving as fast as that didn't go well.
Who is the best driver? Well, me, of course, although some of the cam ops might disagree. Hi, my name is Tristan Dix, and I am a guide here at Djuma Private Game Reserve for Wild Earth. We love connecting you to the African bush, and we always look forward to all of your questions. If you want to ask a question on Wild Earth,
you'll need to register on the website. Once registered, go to our live safari page and submit a question below the live feed. Catch up with me on Wild Earth.
The croc is still holding another one there. It's holding from the hindquarters. I would really want. The wildebeest cross is trying. The croc is holding the tail. It's holding tight. Oh no. Goodness me. Lucky wildebeest. You have another day to live.
Expect the unexpected here on Wild Earth daily.
Hi, I'm Kyle, and I come to you live every day here from Tswalu, Kalahari in South Africa. My favorite bird has to be the social weaver. The enormous nest that they create, their survival tactics to inhabit these harsh and unforgiving environments, and as well as their complex social arrangements is truly remarkable. And the interconnectedness with the ecosystem shows us that we are too.
Catch up with the guides daily here on Wild Earth.
Welcome back. So we're still with our buffalo. They've all calmed down a little bit. Lots of them are actually lying down. But what I find most interesting is the rhino that are in the middle of them. I've been watching them quite carefully, and what I've noticed is that they're actually not feeding. The youngsters just stood up now. Oh, now they're moving around. But I mean, for the most part that you've been away, they were actually just very still there. The mother had her head down, but she wasn't actually feeding. And sometimes with rhino, if they don't want to lie down but they want to rest, you know, they've got those, white rhino specifically, they've got those big square lips that are quite strong, and they'll put their face on the ground, those lips, they'll rest the lips on the ground and actually kind of rest their head on their lips if they don't want to put their whole body down. I think that's what she was doing. Rhinos often take a while to get started in the day. They'll very slowly wake up and get active. Keegan, are cows heavier than buffaloes, or did you ask it the other way around? I think that yes, buffaloes probably are heavier. Buffaloes are probably heavier than cows. Obviously, you do get a number of different breeds of cows, so I think it would depend which cows you were referring to. But I think generally buffaloes probably are. But I actually don't know enough about cows to answer that question. I know more about buffaloes. But I mean, if we look at this big bull here that we were talking about earlier, just as we say that, he looks at us. Thank you very much, sir. He's pretty big, and don't really know how big a bull cow would, like a normal cow bull would get, but you can see that he has a lot of muscle, and those horns would also weigh quite a bit. It might be actually that they're relatively similar in weight, and if buffalo are bigger, I don't think it'll be by very much. And we see how the rhino started walking through these buffalo that are lying down, and they all started getting up again. But you can see that rhino's got her head down, and she's not, if she was eating, you'd be able to see her head moving around as she munched. Bridget, that's a very good question, and see, that's that buffalo bull. Yeah, he might be in charge, but he's definitely throwing his weight around, just making sure everyone knows that he's in charge. Sorry, but back to your question, yes, they do phlegm and grimace pretty much in the same way, all of them. Almost all mammals do it. Horses will even do it, so zebras, buffalo, rhino you'll see doing, even the cats, so even the predators you'll see lions, leopards doing it. And with I've never seen, so with lots of the herbivores, they actually put their tongues directly into the stream of urine to test it with that organ. But with predators, I've never actually seen them put their tongue into the urine. They'll find like an area where the other animals urinated on the ground or like in a bush or something, and then it'll maybe lick that or just sniff it and then do the phlegm and grimace. But in terms of what it looks like, it's a grimace, as the name suggests. It's a lifting up of the front lip and often putting their heads back or high up into the air to let the urine run over that organ. But yeah, I mean, it's quite an interesting thing that ties all the mammals together, that one behavioral trait. I mean, from impalas and giraffe all the way through to lions. It's pretty cool. Yeah, but that is, I mean, I'm moving on from the phlegm and grimace, but the reason we stayed with this herd of buffalo and the rhino is just because of what we just saw there. It's a little bit of unrest. Buffaloes usually are just milling about, so it's quite nice to see when there's a bit of a change in behavior, be it or restless bull or a pair of rhino. It's just nice to see them doing something other than just sleeping and eating. And it's such a beautiful morning and just a beautiful scene. The first clear day we've actually had in ages here on Phinda. Did I hear that correctly? Do they smell the same? No, they don't actually. So, rhino, I'm going to go off, what their dung smells like, because generally that's what the animal smells like, especially with buffalo, because they're quite messy defecators, in that when they defecate, lots of their dung gets spread around their hindquarters. You can see on this young bull close to us here, if you look at his rump, you see how his anus is actually like kind of sitting up, facing upwards, like on top of his, what do you call those, hip bones? I don't think they're hip bones, but like on those back bones. So it doesn't fall straight out. It actually sits up there, and then he swats his tail around, as you can see him doing now, and that, unfortunately for them, spreads it around quite a lot, which isn't great. So quite a lot of the time you will see, but there we go, the big bull, you can actually see he's got dung spread around his hindquarters and yeah, so that makes them smell quite a lot like their dung. And even though buffalo and rhino actually eat the same thing, buffalo are ruminants, so they'll chew their food over and over again, like chewing the cud ball, just like cows will, because they've got a number of stomachs. So when they finally pass that dung, then it's extremely, extremely fine, and it comes out exactly like cow dung, like a patty. So it's completely runny, and it's got a very like acrid kind of acid smell. It's not as, it's going to sound quite weird, but it's not as kind of sweet and soft. It's a lot more harsh than a rhino's dung. So rhino also eat grass, but they don't ruminate. So it passes through the system once. They chew it, and it comes out the other side, and it comes out the other side pretty much just smelling similar to grass or to maybe like horse dung, if you know what horse dung smells like. So it's that kind of like sweet. It's not an altogether unpleasant smell, actually. It's just kind of a sweet, soft, mild smell, unlike the quite sharp, acidic smell of yeah, I mean, if you know cows and horses, I can compare it to that. A buffalo dung would smell like cow dung, and rhino dung would smell like horse dung, and the animals themselves smell similar to that. All right, but we're going to send you off to a surprise, apparently. I'm excited to hear what this is.
Welcome back, everybody, and shall I say, very good morning to you from these beautiful, beautiful meerkats welcoming us this morning. And yeah, just so gorgeous. From that pack of wild dogs we followed yesterday afternoon all the way across to this beautiful little meerkats. I am Johan, and behind the camera this morning is Morgan, and we will be your team in the Kalahari this morning. Looking at these gorgeous guys, it is so beautiful to see them sunning themselves in this beautiful spot. And you'll see they've actually faced their bellies quite a bit towards the sunlight this morning. Just so dark, tall and handsome. As you can see, these beautiful little guys just sunning themselves, getting ready for the day. Very, very special. You'll see some of the alphas have been out and about, standing and just sunning themselves first things first. A couple of youngsters that's standing on the right-hand side of the one on the left, to the right. And so this group of meerkats is actually the Xhosa group of meerkats. And so this is actually one of the oldest group of meerkats that's been started with this meerkat habituation program. That is very, very important to this ecosystem, telling us so much more about this ecosystem. So special to see these guys like this, and just welcoming us all in the early morning like this. So this group of meerkats, I don't know if you remember that about a few months ago, when Dylan was still here with us, he was looking at this particular group, and this is the group actually that got targeted a bit by the honey badgers, and this is the ones that the numbers have gone down quite a bit. And now I've got a brand new update for you that they have just shot through the roof of their population as they started to pick up quite nicely on their numbers. Look how very attentively she's looking around. So now it's 3 adults, 3 sub-adults, and just who knows how many pups are in there. It's so incredible. Veronique was saying to me just now that the pups hasn't risen out yet, so the possibilities are there that we might be having the very first sight of these pups this morning, of this beautiful colony of meerkats. So this group has been seeing people for a super long time, as I was saying, well over 10 years. And there was one stage where they have literally been up to close to 20 meerkats in this colony. But yeah, as life went on and life happens, it gets to a point that they get obviously, they've gone through 2 consecutive droughts in the last 4 to 5 years, and they have lessened their numbers, and it's gone down quite a bit as it is. But yeah, they do pick up as the seasons travels on, and we've been having pretty good situations now lately where they just tried picking up the population quite nicely in these conditions and situations. Really, really special to see these guys just picking up on their populations again. So we had quite a bit of them out actually lately, but yeah, some of them has gone down again. Maybe the tiny bit of a breeze has been pushing them down back into the burrows. As you can see, there's more coming out to the left-hand side, on the other side of the tree there, and just popping up slowly but surely, as it is. Look at that beautiful banding on that back of that one, now turning back with the bellies also. So it's obviously acting like proper sunbathing solar panel systems happening actually as they get a warming system happening for the day, obviously as they're going to get going from this position. And this time of the year they would forage up to a good 10, 11 o'clock. But it also depends on how quickly it gets warming up towards the middle of the day. Then they will typically find a nice bush for the rest of the day where they're going to just relax a bit, or either find a bolt hole system wherever they can just save some energy for the right amount of energy build-up once again. But so special to see another group and another colony that comes out and displays themselves so nicely in the sun for us this morning. And so beautiful to see them actually, like seeing these youngsters all sticking together here in these conditions, coming together, holding tight on each other as well.
Welcome back, and we have not moved very far. In fact, we have not moved at all. Yeah, but we're just staying with this herd and with these rhinos. They are being very cool, but I'm also scared to move off and then lose signal, because that's why we've not been with you so much lately. Yesterday, I think we did one brief little stint, so I'm nervous to move off and then move out of signal, but I mean, why move when we've got such a cool scene anyways? And Simon and I have just been sitting and enjoying it, actually. You can hear little grunts and sighs. Lots of the buffalo just sitting down, like chewing the cud, breathing quite heavily. Such a peaceful scene. Seems, it's kind of lulling me back into sleepiness. These buffalo haven't quite started the day. I think they will have probably gone down to drink. There's a little watering hole literally just down the hill from where we are. I think that they probably spent the night somewhere quite nearby. Went down and drank, and then moved up onto this hillside to carry on feeding, to just carry on chewing the cud. You see that not very many of them are actually feeding. Most of them are just standing or lying down and chewing what they've already ingested. So they'll have eaten that grass, swallowed it, maybe drank some water, and now they've regurgitated it and they are working it down to a finer substance, just making sure they get every last little morsel of nutrients out of it. It's, explaining a little bit more about what we were saying in terms of what they smell like last time. It's quite interesting though. So, buffalo obviously do spend quite a bit of time feeding, but not as much time as rhinos, because rhinos don't get as much nutrients out of the food that they eat because they don't chew it more than once. They have to eat a whole lot more food to get as much nutrients as they need, whereas buffalo will spend some of the time that rhinos spend eating, they'll spend it chewing the cud and just squeezing that nutrients out. But I think that we will now leave these buffalo. I think we're going to try and venture off, and hopefully we find another patch of signal when we find something cool to show you. But for now, we're going to send you off to Steve.
Yay, welcome to Pridelands, everybody. We were worried we weren't going to get these birds on camera for you, but we do. We've gotten a pair of striped kingfishers. No, I've never been able to show you striped kingfishers before. I've definitely tried to play the call for you. Often, there we go, here's another one. Whoopsie, had a little poo. Now, often they are confused with that of the brown hooded kingfisher, which is slightly bigger. These fellows have got a little bit of a streak chest, and it's not as brown as the brown hooded, with more sort of white on the chest. How splendid. She's busy cleaning her brood patch there. And these are like the brown-hooded kingfish that nest in cavities in the banks because they've got such a dirty head, the brown-hooded. These ones nest in cavities in trees, old woodpecker and barbet holes. Really nice. And as with most of the kingfishers, their actual diet is in fact insects. They will even eat small lizards and geckos. Well, Lolly, we get quite a few kingfisher species, but here we get the brown-hooded, the striped, the giant, the pied. That's 4. The malachite and the pygmy and the grey-headed and the woodland. So we get 8 species here of the 9. The other one we don't get here is the mangrove and the half-collared. So that's 2 we don't get here. Half-collared could occur here. I've never seen a half-collared. They're very pretty birds. And the mangrove, as the name implies, is very sort of aquatic, living in the mangroves. I've seen one down in St. Lucia estuary. These 2 pretty birds. So it's probably the female on the bottom. She looks a little bit bigger than one on top. They were calling earlier on our way through, and I was hoping we'd find them, and I didn't realize they'd just be sitting right on top of the tree, enjoying a lovely view. Kingfishers and bee-eaters are often, well, not always bee-eaters, but kingfishers can often be that really wonderful bird that sits there and waits for you. They're definitely not in a feeding position right now, because when they're sitting in the lower reaches of a tree, they're generally there because they're waiting to plunge dive on an insect that they see. Darcy, and I'm very glad there's a new bird for you. It's definitely the first time I'm putting one on camera, so it's a new one for me on Wild Earth. I've definitely had them calling, but it's nice to be able to show the wonderful audience at home. You can see he's got a very sort of the eye stripe, a very dark sort of patch, almost like a Zorro mask over the eye, whereas the brown hooded kingfisher's just got the dirty head. This one's got a dirty head and the Zorro mask. The beak is dark on the upper bit, not on the lower bit. Whereas the brown hooded has only got a little bit of a black tip on the end of the lower part of the mandible, or the bill. But that's not easily seen right now. There we go. Okay, so as they fly off, I might play the call for you so you can hear it. Are you ready to hear this wonderful sound? I always remember it as someone going, champagne, champagne. Nice one to remember. I can hear them calling. Now everybody, ethically playing bird calls, you've just got to be careful. Okay, breeding season. It's now at the sort of the end of the breeding season right now, so you're not expecting many birds to be breeding. But from an ethical point of view, don't ever play a bird call loud. Anyway, don't ever play it loud. And if you do play it once and then move off. Don't do it again and again in the same area. And don't ever play it loud. If you play it louder than the territorial pair, you could actually cause them to abandon their nest altogether and leave. So try not to ever overplay it. And if you're going to practice bird calls, put earphones in. Put earphones in. Just bear in mind the ethics of it. These birds rely almost exclusively on their sound for territory. And if you overwhelm them, well, exactly, you overwhelm them. So just be very ethical with that regard. There's so much technology these days for bird calls and to play them and to learn. So by all means learn them, but be very ethical in how you do that. Okay, well we're going to catch up with whatever this is on the Game Drive radio, and we're going to send you over to Trish and Juma, who's on a mission.
I certainly am on a mission. I have a whole lot of hyena tracks on this road, which is quite far from the den. In fact, the tracks look like they came from the den to Rebecca's to Ballanite's, and they're moving across. So I'm just going to have a look, because Kalamba, though moving through that block and we are unable to follow her, was moving in this direction. And then we were getting strong scent of hot buttered popcorn. Unfortunately, this tree is still attached to its root. I know, because I tried to do it another time when I was on my own, and then realized I can't move the tree and, thank you Darren, and drive the car at the same time. I could do both of them though, just not at the same time. So we are, as I said, just following around, and then while I smelled some really strong hot buttered popcorn. That's the scent of leopard's urine. We heard some elephants that were shouting. So we're just moving in this direction. I don't see any tracks, but she is moving in the blocks. So, and lots of hyena tracks. So whatever it is, some action seems to be happening in this direction. So we're going to follow up on it. The soil is so lovely and sandy here that the tracks are beautiful. Beautiful. Anyway, I'm going to jump off at this junction now and have a look on foot. Hopefully, we'll find out what that action was.
As many of you know by now, one of our beloved leopard characters, Hukumuri, recently passed away. I would like to invite you to join me on Saturday the 20th of February as I take an intimate look into his life and pay tribute to the incredible cat that he was. I'm looking forward to seeing you around the fire at 7:30 p.m. Central African Time. Sometimes love wants to make you sing. And sometimes love wants to make you bow and fan your wings to your bow. For the southern yellow-billed hornbill, these are signs that love is in the air. These birds are destined for a season of monogamy at least. Breeding pairs are in it for the survival of their chicks. But before love commences, the male needs to woo his valentine with food in the form of nuptial gifts.
I'm Nikki here at Ambion Ngala in South Africa. I love getting questions from viewers about all the small things within the environment and how it all is integrated with one another. If you want to ask me any questions, please simply register with the Wild Earth website, head across to the Live Safari page, and then post your questions there. I'm looking forward to chatting to you on my next Wild Earth drive.
Hello, Mama. Just checking us out, everybody. There's no aggression here. Very relaxed. A herd of elephants moving around your car like that. It's truly, truly magical.
Tune into Wild Earth every single day. It's in your nature.
My favorite animal is a leopard, purely because I just think they are just the epitome of feline grace and power, and the way they can move about in any environment and remain hidden until they want to be seen, I just find incredibly intoxicating, and they're amazingly beautiful.
Catch up with the guides daily here on Wild Earth.
Welcome back to And Beyond Ngala, everyone. And as you can see, we have left that lioness. And whilst looking for the rest of the pride of lions, we found this beautiful small raptor sitting perfectly in a dead knobthorn tree with the sun shining on it beautifully. Have a look at the yellow legs, that beautiful white breast, and then you can see the darker grey and black colours on the wing and on the shoulder. And that is a black-winged kite. And have a look how it's looking down into the grass for any signs of any rodents or any sources of food that it might be after. And they won't only hunt from a perch like that, you'll also often see them hunting in the air where they hover directly above whatever they're looking for, and they'll hover in literally one position and wait to see if they can spot their prey species, lots of different species like rodents, and then they'll swoop down and try and catch it. We have also had tracks of the pride of lions quite close to where we left that young female this morning. So the lions were definitely around last night. We try to follow them. We checked the eastern boundary. They haven't crossed out of Ngala, which is a good sign for us. So we're just trying to have a look around this eastern part of the property and see if we can't pick up on them again. I just want to show on the book here, Odie, if that's all right. Here is the bird that we are looking at. This one over here. There we go, and you can see black-winged kite for some of the older birders. It also called, or the old name is a black-shouldered kite. And you can see at the top here quite clearly there, you can see the black wings on the outer feathers, the primary feathers of the wings, and there's the shoulder as well, that little black shoulder. So it's distinct in both terms, and you can see also it's got these beautiful dark, distinct red eyes as well. Common resident that we see here in South Africa, and tend to follow pretty much where the food sources are. So rodents, any sources of food that they can find, they will follow them. And it's complying with us quite nicely this morning, just perching up there beautifully. We did try and get it a couple times, and every time we would stop, it would take off and fly away. And I think now with just the little bit of extra distance that we have between us and this bird, has allowed it to relax and stay perched there for us. Nice to see. Don't tend to see them too often on Ngala, mainly during the summer months when there are more rodents and prey species for them. So having a look at it, I mean, it probably looks a little bit smaller in the camera, Tyler, but it's one of the smaller raptors or birds of prey that we get, but it's definitely not the smallest one we get. There are a few Sparrow Hawks and goshawk species they were goshawks that we get here. The two smaller raptors that I do know of, the little Sparrow Hawk and the shikra. They are a little bit smaller than that, and they tend to not perch on such exposed branches. Just trying to see if I can get it here. Just give me a second. So here is the little Sparrow Hawk, Odie. over here, and it is a tiny bird, only weighing about 106 grams, the female, and the male only weighs 74 grams and about 25 centimeters in height. So that is a very, very small raptor. That I would say is probably the smallest raptor that we get here. The kite just being a little bit bigger than it, but not much bigger. So it is one of the smaller raptors, but it's not the smallest. And you can see with the little Sparrow Hawk, it's got these beautiful, distinct yellow eyes. And then the easiest way to tell the difference between them and some of the other raptors is they've got two little bars, white bars on their tail that are quite distinct as well. You never know, maybe we'll get a little Sparrow Hawk on camera at some stage this week, and then we'll be able to show you what it looks like. But I think from here we're going to have one last quick look at that black-winged kite, and then we're going to continue on our way down the road. We're just doing little loops around here to see if we can pick up on tracks of these lions. I think it's probably about 5 or 6 animals that we have tracks of moving around. The area where we're sitting in now, the road is quite hard, so it's a little bit more difficult to pick up on the tracks. One of the lionesses did come down this road, and I saw at least 2 tracks on the road just to our right. So I'm wondering if potentially coming through this clearing last night, they didn't try to hunt a little bit. But yeah, I think let's leave that black-winged kite for now. Leave the black-winged kite for now and continue on our way to see what else we can find. Hopefully find these lions. And I'm wondering if it's the faction of the Pride that's got the 2 white lions in, the Birmingham young male as well, the one with the injured back right leg, or if it's the group that's moved all the way from the central parts that has come into this area. And there is 1 track along this road, so that's a big win. We've still got 1 track moving along the road here, and we'll just keep slowly checking to see if we can't find them. It's also quite a nice pan down the bottom here, but there is so much water around this time of year that they could be, but they wouldn't necessarily head towards the water source or a pan system to find water, because as we've seen in the roads, in the bush, there's lots and lots of water around, so they could be anywhere. But I also think with this long grass and the dew this morning, the grass is still wet, I think they would have potentially looked for somewhere nice and dry to lay up, just like we saw with that young lioness. She'd moved onto the road to rest this morning out of the wet grass. I think that's what the rest of the Pride of Lions might be looking to do as well. And driving along the road, we have just bumped into an impala ewe and her youngster, so a lamb. Not the youngest one I've seen, that one's probably about 2 months already. That's what we were hoping that young lioness would have managed to catch last night, so that she can get her energy levels up a little bit, just to keep her going. Still got tracks of these lions moving along the road. I can see a track of a big male lion here as well. Quite a lot bigger than the lionesses and much more round than the lionesses' tracks are. You can see this area that we're heading down into quite a low-lying area as well. It tends to hold a lot of water, so it almost becomes like a marsh down here. So there's a good chance that we might find a nice water bird down the bottom, something special like a striated heron, dwarf bittern. Did see an African jacana just before I went on leave here, so who knows, maybe they'll be around. Also some elephant tracks on the road. So it seems like lots and lots of different animals have been moving through this eastern part of Ngala last night and this morning. Still got the lion tracks moving along the road here. So we're going to keep following these tracks and see if we can't find the rest of the Pride, but for now we're going to send you over to Steve at Pridelands, who's got something interesting to show you all.
Hello everybody, well, it's that time of day, new property, new area, where I have gotten off the car to hug one of the most magnificent marula trees that I've come across. Have you hugged a tree today? Johan, have you hugged a tree today? Johan has not hugged a tree today, everybody. If you've not hugged a tree today, you should go give it a try. Just think about how old this tree might be and how long it's stood here watching the grass has changed, the seas has changed. It's very rooted, it's very grounded. It's had absolutely no potential to move. It's called non-motile. So it can't move, can't go anywhere. The seed went here, went into the ground, and for the rest of its existence, this is its place. So it's grounded, it's rooted, it lives off of the land. It provides shade, provides a lovely object to hug. It's actually very dirty, this bit right over here, from all of the elephant rubbing. All this here has been smoothly rubbed by an elephant. And it's only quite recent, because elephants haven't been coming onto this reserve for that long. But just imagine a beautiful leopard just perched up in there, sort of enjoying the view. Maybe an impala kill out of its mouth. Such wonderful stories. Can you imagine just going back in the life of this little tree, like speeding up in time, where the tree was this big, and just watching how the world changed around it, how many seeds of grasses came and went, how many insects came and went, how many animals used it, how many times it fruited, how many times it flowered, how many leaves it grew, how many branches, like this big one, grew up and fell off and broke off and then decomposed back into the soil. So I find it amazing. Just imagine how unsettled we get sometimes when we're sitting at home and thinking, I'm in one place, I need to move. I feel a little bit edgy, I need to move. Think about a tree that is never going to move. So it has to put its feet deep into the earth. And when the wind comes, what does it do? It dances with the wind. Because, I mean, what else are you going to do? You've got to dance. You can't fight the wind. The wind is coming, and you move with it. So I think that's quite a beautiful sort of mindset to think about the grounding nature that a tree brings, and the elements that it brings, the shade and the nutrients and the food and the oxygen. Don't forget that this provides life-giving oxygen for you and me, even though I'm getting it here. The oxygen is gas, goes into the atmosphere, is filling the whole world, so we've got to look after the trees where we are. That time when we thought that where we are is important and we have to only conserve where we are is nonsense. The world is connected. The world is a big cocoon. Whatever we breathe here, whatever we send out here is going elsewhere. Whatever we pollute here is going out elsewhere. Rivers, atmospheric oxygen, atmospheric pollution. It's not going anywhere, everybody. It's staying where it is, really. It might be moving from place to place, but it is affecting the whole. It's affecting the species on the planet, and it's affecting you and me, and it's affecting the world that we are creating for our children. So next time you think about your actions and potentially the sort of the limiting factors, when you say, it's not my problem, just think about the fact that we're all in the same glass jar. We're all in the same place, and we have to look after what we have. We have to look after it for the longevity of, well, not just the species that we see here and know and love, but for ourselves. I want to be able to bring my grandchildren to these places one day and be like, see what good job we did. We're going to carry on down this road here. We find ourselves again on Marula Lane today. With just incremental movements, we didn't find any tracks of Lagatha, the lone lioness. So we're just going to sort of head towards Leopard Dam again. Maybe we'll pick something up there, and we're going to do a loop that way around. Yes, Anna. Anna's got a really long history. What a story to tell. What a story to tell. Can you imagine that just for one moment, everybody? I mean, I know there's lots of people out there who maybe can't move around. So think about them, think about the fact that many of us are able to come and go and move and go. And I know many of the situations in the world at the moment have made life tricky, but we still need to have appreciation for the movement that we have and the ability we have to get around, and have utmost respect and compassion for those who find themselves unable to move around. And think about a tree who just sits there and just watches how everything goes by. There's huge amounts of tolerance there. I suppose it's easy for the tree because it doesn't see other trees moving around, so, yeah, very interesting. Deep breaths, everyone. Deep breaths on this Wednesday. Is it a Wednesday? Yeah, it's Wednesday. It's Thursday. There we go. Thursday. You know, you're having fun when days of the week are just disappearing. A little bit of a change here, everybody. We live in tents and nice cold showers this morning. It's wonderful. Beautiful sunrise we woke up to this morning. Elephants delayed Johan and I getting back to camp last night by about an hour. Traffic at 7:30, 8 o'clock at night. Who would have thought? Here we've got a Swanson spurfowl who is like the tree enjoying the view. Can you see him, Johan, just on top at 2 o'clock? Swanson spurfowls. The males tend to do this. They climb up onto these trees where their voice is... There's the beginning. As we have some Retz's helmet sharks fly over. So their voice carries much further. Maybe we'll hear him. He's also having a look around for any potential females, and if one enters his little domain, he'll flop down and puff himself up and chase her around, because she obviously thinks that that's really sexy and attractive. He almost triples in body size by puffing out all his feathers. But she's first attracted to that deliciously beautiful call. You heard him there. Melissa's a very different sound. I mean, these guys you can only hear from 50 meters, 100 meters away. Grand hornbills, their whole resonance, it's all about resonance in their beak. It's just loud. They're far louder. And this fellow is just a bit of a scratchy throat, smoker's cough sort of noise. Southern ground hornbills you can hear from kilometers away. And that is the design. The call is a territorial one. So the design of the territorial call is to demarcate territory. And so southern ground hornbills have got an enormous territory because their range for finding food is really, really big. And so they have to move. Whereas these spurfowls, very, very localized, much, much smaller territories, and they don't have to go very far. And can you see what's in the road up ahead, Jan? Let's see if we can get them. Oh, another one's coming. Sorry about the quick movement, everybody, but we've got some little fellows in the road. Oh, there they go. A little machikitor, little dwarf mongooses. Oopsie. Here's a set of cool little animals. Smallest mammalian carnivore. Although they do eat a lot of insects. Still regarded as a carnivore because of the teeth. A marvelous sound. He actually heard the crested francolin a moment before and he decided, oh, you're not going to outwit me. Ended up shouting over the crested francolin. And the flailuri, or the Birchall's cuckoo, is calling, which is an indication of rain. Well, Lee, of course they've evolved. All the birds that we hear have come from somewhere, and if we think about the three different sort of species of spurfowl francolin that we'll find. See, he's reacting to the Natal spurfowl's call. So they would have been the same bird at one point, and then they slightly changed their their behavior, and they're speciated, and then the call would change. And the reason why birds have different calls, if the swans and spurfowl had the same call as the crested or the natal spurfowl, well then they'd probably breed with each other, and then that would lead to that species becoming one. So speciation, and birds have speciated enormously, and a lot of it's not to do with the call, it's to do with the way that they feed. But the call is something that's evolved for mate recognition within species. Obviously, a lot of birds don't use call for territory or for mate recognition. They might use plumage, they might use other sort of devices. But I reckon bird calls can change, and many of the songbirds that we know of actually are able to change and imitate and add. For example, the fork-tailed drongo and the sabota lark and the mimics, they're able to add lots and lots of song to their bird call. They are obviously hatched with an ability to mimic, an ability to incorporate, and so they are able to evolve their bird song. We can see it. I mean, the birds of this area versus like the fork-tailed drongos of here versus the fork-tailed drongos of KZN have got different sounds, because different dialects, different things that they hear, just like English spoken in South Africa sounds quite different to English spoken in Ireland. It's this accent, it's still the same language. I suppose it sounds like an evolution, but it's just a lot of slang thrown in there. This fellow is going to do a little bit of cleaning just to check the undercarriage before the ladies arrive. As James would talk about the bird lice. Wonderful, wonderful bird lice. Probably the easier of the three spurfowl franklins to identify because of that red face. Where we occur anyway. Lisa, the sounds are cool. Oh, I agree. The sounds out here are magnificent. I think one of the huge benefits, there's a bird directly behind this one on the tree at the back, Jan. Can you see it? It's not a bird directly at the top at the back there. It looks like I can hear him. It's a rattling testicula. Can you see him at the back? The dead tree right at the back there. Up. There he is. There's a rattling testicula. Another bird that likes to sit on top of a tree and shout at the world. You can hear some hornbills. The birds are making lots of noises today. Our spurfowl is giving us such an audio show. There's God. So there's a Franklin alarm calling off to the left over here. Listen to the sound. This is a very important sound. That like chirring. You can see a squirrel in the tree. If we can often find the bird, we know where it's looking. Let me just move up a few meters. I mean, it could be for a mongoose. There, I can see the bird there. It's on that low branch at 11 o'clock, 10 o'clock now. I'll stop at 9. You see him just there. It's like 9:30 on that branch. Crested Franklin. So just down here on the small branch, your left. Oh, here, on there. There you go. Now that call there is one that we listen for all the time when it comes to finding leopards, and We had some tracks before of a male leopard, but after chatting with Brent last night, see, he's confused. He's looking in every possible direction. After chatting with Brent last night, he said there's a male leopard up and down this area that is very skittish even at night. So, you know, it's possible that he might have been here just now, and just even hearing my voice would have made him skedaddle. Impossible to see a leopard that does not want to be seen, and that's why our birds and small mammals and large mammals are very, very helpful.
Hi, I'm Sue. I'm from South Africa and I'm the incredibly lucky winner of the Tswalu competition. Tswalu has so much to offer, but we're really looking forward to the game viewing options, as going out with a personal guide who has so much knowledge will just be exceptional. Motsi Lodge looks absolutely amazing and we're so looking forward to spending time there. It really is out of this world. I only registered as an explorer towards the end of January, so when the email arrived stating that I was the winner, it took me totally by surprise. I'd just like to thank Wild Earth and Tswalu for this most incredible prize. It really is a dream come true.
Wild Earth Explorers, it's in your nature.
Riverbeds are a great way to find water and look for places where elephant have excavated hollows. You can then dig into the sand, and after a couple of feet you should find damp sand, which then can be squeezed out or siphoned off for water. And with water being one of our scarcest resources, it is a good idea to conserve water where and how you can.
My name is Ross and I'm a field guide at and beyond Pinder Private Game Reserve. I love getting questions from guests on Wild Earth because I love sharing and learning information about nature with new people, and it also makes me feel like you're all joining me in real life. If you want to ask a question on Wild Earth, then you need to register on our website. Once registered, go to our live safari page and submit your question below our live feed.
Something very, very interesting. I didn't plan this, but this is a scene rarely seen. This is what we call a journey of giraffe. So beautiful.
Tune into Wild Earth every single day. It's in your nature.
Welcome back to And Beyond Ngala, and you'll see we have managed to find a few female kudus within the flowing Timbavachi River, which I'm sure you can hear flowing over the causeway in front of us. It's still flowing quite strongly, and amazing to see the kudus in the middle of the river. They are surrounded by water, so they've walked through the water to get to where they are feeding. Have a look at those enormous ears. Beautiful faces, the little white stripe across their nose. And you can imagine, have a look at the area they're in. Very dense area. This is where these kudus tend to spend a lot of time. So you can imagine their eyesight, although they've got very, very good eyesight, tends to not be the most effective tool to help them spot and see predators. So they need to make use of those enormous ears to listen out very carefully for any movement around them, any rustling in the bushes. But these ones within the river seem to be quite calm this morning, and I'm sure they're feeding on the fresh new shoots that are coming out through the water. For the last couple of days, this river's been flowing quite strongly, and I think might have been even flowing too strong for these kudus to have ventured onto this little island that they're in. I'm sure for those of you that have been following Ngala for a while, this is often an area that we will drive in the riverbed. And Odie and myself were speaking about how we would have loved to have driven in the riverbed to see if we could find where the tracks of this pride of lions have moved to, but we are not quite sure at the moment. You can see the hammerkop flying in as well now. And watch, let's see where it lands. Hopefully it lands up. So Heather's asking the relationship and interaction between kudu and impala and whether they get along. They do get along quite well. The hammerkop, you can see there's quite a nice view there. But the kudus and impala do tend to get along quite well. They do tend to prefer living and moving around relatively similar habitats. The kudus sometimes do tend to move into much more dense bush, but they don't have any issues with each other. You can imagine the impalas with their eyesight and also good hearing, and the kudu with their exceptional hearing. When joining together and moving around together, they are able to pick up on predators or any threats a little bit easier. But he's just scanning there towards the kudu. You can see two of them now in the very dense vegetation there. And you can see those stripes running down the kudu side as well. And those are a form of disruptive camouflage that break up their body shape. Not going to be too useful in the reeds or when they're standing in the open in the sun like that, but you can imagine in the thickets when there's a bit of dappled light coming through and the lions and leopards being nocturnal, they don't have the best view or they can't see in color. That little stripe will just break up their body shape and helps them hide away a little bit more. Super interesting. It's at Ngala we don't tend to see the river flowing too much, so it is a treat to be able to watch these kudus moving around within the flowing river, have the sound of the water going over the causeway here as well. And that hammerkop that we saw a little bit earlier that has flown off again has been spending a lot of time on the top of this causeway. And there are quite a lot of deep pools further along or further downriver in the Timbavati. And when the river tends to flow like this, you can imagine all the fish that are in those big pools love the running water, and they'll swim up the river to try and spawn, and the hammerkop just waits along this causeway for any of the smaller fish species to try and jump up and over the causeway and get up the river, and then catches them and feeds on them. See how that kudu's got its head right down in the reeds. I think it is feeding on reeds at the moment, and those reeds are actually very prickly as well. They do tend to give you quite a and we're going to stick around in the river, maybe head across onto the other side and see if we can't pick up on tracks of those lions again. So hoping maybe some other animals might give their position away with an alarm call, but we're going to send you over to Trishala at Jumo, who's got another herbivore.
We have found an elephant. It's the same young male, a young bull that's been hanging around quarantine. And I've been seeing him every day since we've been back. Today being day 3. I think he's quite beautiful amongst the grass in quarantine. Every scene in quarantine seems exceptionally stunning, since the abundance of vegetation all around. So we've been looking around, trying to follow up on those tracks, and some other elephants that were making a bit of a noise, but unfortunately the road was quite wet. I thought, let me not chance it. So then I thought, let us find some elephants. And then this guy showed up. Thankfully, it's not too windy, so I hope you'll be able to hear when he hits his ears on his body. Luther, you're just commenting on those ears. You say he's got very nice ears. He does. He's still quite young, this guy. I'd say he's still a teenager. Mid-teens. Recently kicked out. And he's still got very nice ears with entire margins. So you should be able to hear the swishing of his tail as it hits him, him pulling out grass, and also the flapping of the ears against his body. Looks like he might come say hi. He is very, very relaxed. Hi, Timothy. Thanks so much for asking us a question. You're 10 years old. You'd like to know, when do elephants trumpet? Elephants trumpet when they're excited. So sometimes when you're really scared, that's also excitement. And then sometimes when there's a lot happening, but you're not scared, there's also excitement there. And then when something really amazing is happening, maybe an elephant is giving birth, then they may also trumpet. So it's usually associated with there being some sort of excitement, whether it's negative or positive. Almost like a bit of a nervous jolt. But you know, sometimes you can be nervous and a happy nervous, and then other times you can be nervous because you've been startled. Most of the time, trumpet is associated with that. When I've seen it, it's been when they're startled. Not exactly scared, not exactly happy, but I do know also anecdotally that elephants would trumpet when another elephant is giving birth and stuff like that. Isn't this lovely? I think it's close enough for us to be able to hear the subtle sounds. So careful. Such a beautiful scene. The underside of that trunk, gorgeous, all the way down to the ground. Well, we're gonna let our young lone bull be on his way, and we'll send you over to Tristan with an entire herd.
Yeah, with a herd of impala, just watching them kind of going about their business, sometimes it's a worthwhile tactic, because from these sort of positions, either they start alarm calling or you hear an alarm call, so it's always a worthwhile endeavor to sit. There's also, I would stop because of this impala on the right. You can see she's not in good condition at all. Her ribs are showing heavily, hip bones, so it's not an animal that should be looking like that, given what's around food-wise. There should be a lot more kind of meat on those bones. You can see very, very skinny, so that would be a prime candidate for predation. Leopards and lions and dogs and all kinds of other things would often single out an individual like that, because it's going to be a much weaker part of the herd and probably easier to catch. Now, just to update you on our morning, we've had a very frustrating morning. So we found the Talamati Pride. Unfortunately, we couldn't go live with them. We were in a bad signal area, so I was pretty sad about that. They were lying all over the road and playing, which was nice. And then we actually tracked Tingana for about 17 kilometers. I don't even know how far it was. And then he too, as the tracks were starting to get really beautiful and fresh and starting to look like we were right behind him, he went also into a place where no matter how hard we'll try, there won't be signal in that area at all. So we had to unfortunately leave those tracks. So it's been a tricky morning from that regard. I would have enjoyed spending a bit of time with the Telemartin. It would have been nice to find Tingana. And I say Tingana, I mean, I loosely say it. It's a male leopard that walked a route that Tingana has walked many times in the past. So, you know, he kind of came from sort of the Djuma Buffelshoek boundary all the way through Buffelshoek, pretty much the entire length of Djuma, and then towards sort of the Torchwood Djuma Buffelshoek boundary, and then cut all the way along towards the sort of central parts of Torchwood. So that's a typical kind of route that Tingana used to walk. But in saying that, we also know that Mulawati, well, he's all over the place these days too. So it could have been him, either one of them. But the tracks were really starting to look good. So I was kind of hopeful we were going to find him before we got to the point that we did. But anyway, it's the way the cookie crumbles. One needs to be patient. We also now have just picked up tracks, well, what we think is Tandi, coming out of Torchwood and going into Djuma. So we'll try and kind of follow. They're going, unfortunately, into an area where there's a lot of closed roads. And we know with Tandi, she can be tricky to find at the best of times. So we'll give it a bash, you know, see if we get lucky. It's part of why I was sitting here, was just to listen, and maybe we picked up a squirrel alarm call or something shouting in the distance, and that we could have maybe potentially found her. But so far it's been pretty quiet. It does then mean, because of where the tracks have come out, I'm pretty sure that the cub is somewhere here on Torchwood, on sort of First Rock, or the drainage that runs south. Where she came from is pretty much a direct line from Torchwood, from First Rock to the cut line here. So we'll go and follow up and pick it up and see. I was doing this boundary road quickly just to see if I could see if she turned and came back towards the First Rock area, in case she was heading back towards the cub after doing her evening patrol. Temba, how has a female impala select a ram? Well, they don't really select a ram. A ram takes control by force of a herd, and in that process becomes attractive to the females. So what he does is he's going to chase every other male that he sees all over the place. So almost like a Friday night out in some of the towns and cities of the world. He's going to kind of push them away, and in doing so is proving to the female that he is a strong, worthy candidate to be mated with, and then she will be mate with him. That's during the rutting season. This particular herd right now, these females aren't interested in mating yet, and so they won't even be remotely interested in a male's kind of drive. Also, the males themselves are not too hyped up at the moment, because they're not picking up any pheromones to tell them that the females are in estrus, so they are a lot calmer. As soon as they start to pick up that females are coming into estrus, then the males become a lot more boisterous. They start to chase each other around, and like I say, in doing so and fighting and proving their strength to the females, they become a worthy individual to copulate with. You can see now the females are having a bit of a tough time. If you watch the female on the far right with the baby, it's hard to believe that these babies are as big as they are already, but they're still trying to suckle, but they're so big now that the mothers don't want to let them, and they kind of constantly just try and move away and keep the little ones at bay. They need to eat their grass now rather than drinking milk. Okay, we're going to carry on. Let's see if we can find our elusive Tandi. In the meantime, let's send you across to Steve, who's at a waterhole.
Thanks, Justin. Good luck finding Tandi. No doubt you have the necessary skills to do so. Talking about Tandi, the leopard, we are at Leopard Dam once again. Johan and I pulled in for a quiet cup of coffee as we just come and see what's happening. As discussed many times in the past, one of the most favourite things to do on Game Drive is to stop at a watering hole and have a coffee in the morning. That's when you tell people we're about to stop for a coffee, it's actually quite nice to give them a heads up half an hour, 45 minutes before. We're going to stop soon for a coffee, and then, suddenly the energy comes back again, the excitement comes back again, people are looking again. As you can find sometimes on game drives that individuals can get a little bit sort of lazy, a little bit tired on the back, and there's nothing to invigorate one than to say we're going to have a little coffee met itzy. Coffee met itzy in South Africa basically means a coffee with a little something in it. and Marula cream often comes to mind. Favorite pastime in South Africa. Not just at coffee stops, but at sundowners as well. So we enjoy a little bit of a wonderful buffalo weaver accumulated nest there. A very safe location. The only thing that's going to get to them are some birds of prey, maybe some monitor lizards, possibly a snake. There's wonderful community nests that these weavers build. Red-billed buffalo weaver. They were making a lot of noise before. I think I've soothed them into some sleep. So everybody, as you know, I love to go out and bird, and it's lovely to see some new species that we don't normally get to see all the time. I'll try and do as many as possible, and I'll keep a little bird list for what I see here. Claire, they don't actually use much grass on the outside. What I've noticed when I've taken apart some of these nests that fall down is they use a lot of sticks. They use a lot of leadwood sticks as well, particularly sticks. You can see it's very brown, and lots of leadwood sticks. You can tell by the very nature that the leadwood stick is. There's the decussate sort of nature, the 90 degrees. And then when you do see some grass there, it's almost as if some other birds have built nests there, or they've lined the inside of their, what would you call it? Their condominium. They've lined it with grass to make a little bit. Oh, that was my phone playing a call. I thought suddenly there was an African Harrier Hawk nearby. Sorry about that. I was going to just have a look at the buffalo weaver nests and see if there's anything else. But from what I've seen, definitely lots of sticks. You can see all those sticks. You see on the far left there, you see those branches sticking out with the little branches on them. Those are leadwood branches. So they do a lot of leadwood sticks. And leadwood obviously is quite a hard wood. But I'm sure someone's dissected a nest. Now, they use thorny sticks. I'm sure someone's dissected a nest. Will give us a little bit more info. Okay. Okay, so inside the chamber, there'll be a ball of grass with leaves and roots. So she basically makes it much prettier inside. He builds the structure, and then she does the rest. But lots of branches, thorn tree branches. You find them often on trees across watering holes, baobab trees, pylons as well. Anywhere high on a Vuetele mast, there's lots of them. There's not much information on what else goes into the nest itself, but I remember seeing a very brave individual on Juma stealing some sticks from the Battelier nest and then putting them in its own. So a very brave young fellow providing a home for his family. And well, it sounds like Johan has got something over in Swalo Kalahari. Let's go see what he's got.
Welcome back, folks, and from the one bird species to another. It is so cool once again to just see these Atom stork coming through these plains of the beautiful green Kalahari. And like we said a few days ago, it's actually quite interesting seeing that these birds are coming through this area, because it's not a bird species we get to see quite often. But very, very cool seeing them coming through. They are non-breeding intra-African migrants that they come and go through to South Africa at a certain time of the year from areas further north up in Africa. And then they go back up North Africa to go breed furthermore. But yeah, traveling for food resources and looking for good food resources in this part of Africa this time of the year round, obviously because of our rainy season being so predominant in this area. So they're cleaning each other quite a bit there, and just quite dramatically cleaning there, just on the ectoparasites that's in and around the feathers and the skins there as well. But yeah, something that is quite interesting is looking at the flowers that they're around. So Morgan's going to show us a very nice zoomed in picture here on these flowers that's coming through. Just look at that gorgeous colors coming out there. So these flowers are part of the Indigofera family. And because of the presence of these flowers, it creates the great amount of presence of the greater armored crickets. And so literally the one thing leads to another. That is what lures the atom stalk into this particular spot. So the greater armored crickets would be feeding on this type of vegetation. And typically on the flowers, the petals of these flowers as it is. And so then, quite interestingly enough, say for instance, the atom stalk in these flowers have been pecking on a specific greater armored cricket. Say he gets injured, he gets to escape, it gets to a point that then a form of cannibalism happens at that given time, where these greater armored crickets will then eat each other and practicing that cannibalism. Quite a odd thing to see and think about. So folks, just to apologize for the meerkats we had this morning. We had just one view that we had there, unfortunately, this morning, but we had a bit of technical difficulties on that spot. But we'll be coming back to you with those meerkats pretty soon, in the next day or two or so, as we keep on going. And so the plans now is we're going to be continuing looking for the last bit of the morning, see if we can possibly find some cheetah. So we're going to continue driving down the road and see what we can get on these cheetah. It is warming up, but there's a strong possibility, as we had lots of tracks in this area. Let's continue. We're going to send you off to Tristan.
Well, hopefully Johan will have some luck with his spotty cats, that they'll be out and about. In the meantime, though, we're with a bird that sometimes can be used, actually, when tracking down things like cheetah. These guys often are one of the first birds to arrive at kills. They will scavenge off carcasses. And so if you find them mixed in with some vultures and some tawny eagles, then you know that there's something fresh that's around. These guys only eat pretty fresh stuff. You won't see them at carcasses that are a few days old. But this is not a sign of anything, these two sitting here. This is our pair of Battelier Eagles that we see regularly. They nest very close to where we are right now and have successfully raised a few chicks over the course of the last few years. So they're a bird that, we spend a lot of time with, and it's why they're so relaxed these days. You can pretty much drive right past that tree and they won't take off. They'll just watch you kind of go underneath them and sit, which is pretty cool. I just liked it this morning because that beautiful blue sky, which contrasts so heavily against that jet black of the head and chest area. You can see nicely the sort of brown-grey back wings and this big white stripe on the wing, and then the beautiful sort of red and yellow beak and feet that they've got. Makes for a pretty picture in many ways. They're a bird that attracts a lot of attention. I don't think I've ever had a guest that hasn't enjoyed seeing a Battelier. They're so sort of exotic looking, and like I say, that contrast in colour from the actual feather pattern to the beak itself is pretty special. I actually wonder, the last time I saw them, which was sort of the end of last year, they were they had a chick with them, but I don't see. I wonder, hang on a second, I just wanted to scan in the back. There's a tree. I wanted to see if maybe the juvenile was still hanging around. No, I can't see anything. It's just a branch. I haven't seen the juvenile with them this time. I saw them yesterday briefly. You can see one has already flown off now to go in search of food. They will start to fly now. Enough heat has picked up that they'll be riding thermals. But I wonder if maybe the juvenile has been pushed out already. And they're now starting to prepare to kind of breed again. They typically only breed middle of the year is when we start to see them actually nesting. So I don't think we'll have a chick now, but maybe they're starting to prep nests and things like that. After, the last chick that they had. All right, we'll carry on. We're trying to get around to where the last tracks have done you. It's a bit of a mission, but we'll get there eventually. In the meantime, let's send you across to Nick.
Crossing fingers that Tristan's going to be able to find some tracks for the leopards there at Djuma, but we've managed to find a lovely herd of elephants underneath two beautiful marula trees. You can see the one in picture is a large female elephant. Have a look how square her head is. It's the easiest way to tell the difference between males and females. And have a look at her temporal glands as well, just behind her eyes, a little bit above. Have a look at that fluid that is streaming out of that gland. And that happens with elephant bulls and with cows and youngsters all round. With females, it's just an indicator of stress. So I wonder if it maybe isn't the miserable weather that we've had the last couple of days and weeks, or if there's a bull that's been harassing them. Many different factors that could have caused that. And these elephants, it has started to heat up a little bit here at Ngala. And the elephants have moved underneath the shade of the marulas. I had a look in the trees and I didn't see any fruit on either of these trees. So either the elephants have already shook most of them out, or they are just two male marula trees that don't produce fruit. But the elephants seem to not be too bothered by the fact that there's no fruit on the ground. You can see this female's got looks like a root or a branch in her mouth. Have a look how she's just chewing it over and over again. You can imagine chewing a piece of... Okay, we're on the calf now, so there you can see the young one coming through at the back. And have a look at those small little tusks. And that calf has been staying very close to this larger female that we've got here. So I'm pretty sure that it is its youngster. I haven't seen if it's a male or female yet. And the calf's been moving around, not so interested in feeding as much as the adults are. And it's just been moving around, sniffing all kinds of things. We saw it with its trunk in its mom's mouth. And I'm sure it's just feeding on the grass that's around us. There's really nice lush grass here. The elephant's just taking advantage of the shade at the moment. So you can hear some of the other elephants that are around. There must be about 6 underneath these two marula trees, maybe 5. You can just hear some of them feeding, their ears flapping and moving around. And they would have been feeding majority of this morning as well. And as it gets warmer and warmer today, they will slowly start to slow down their feeding. I wonder if that youngster isn't trying to suckle just behind mom's legs there. And as it gets hotter and hotter, and especially when it gets towards the hottest part of the day, they will start to rest up for a little bit. If you have a look, Odie, at that female's eye as well, I did hear Pete speaking about it the other day at Pinder, you can see that white build-up in her eye. And you can imagine without having hands and you having the trunk, it's quite difficult to get that stuff and remove it out of the eye, but it's just a build-up, basically like a human sleep. So Rachel, you are correct on that. They have got exceptional hearing. Believe it or not, their smell is probably their best sense that they have, but their hearing is also very, very good. And those big ears do help that. Main reason for having those enormous ears is to keep them cool, but it does help them in their hearing as well. They're able to hear all kinds of noises from long distances away, as well as low frequency noises that we can't hear as humans. And look at this, they're all beautifully coming out into the open. See that root hanging from the female's mouth, trying to chew it as much as possible, but struggling a little bit. Here comes the younger calf. See how it pushed its ears right out, trying to make itself look as big as possible. I think it's only being brave because of Mom and having Mom right next to her. I'm just going to sneak a little bit forward. I think we will get a nice view. It's quite nice and open here on the left, and it'll be interesting to see where they move off to. The sun is straight into us, but that's not a problem. And look at Mom with her trunk. Look how she's curving it around now. She's having a good look at us moving the vehicle. Doesn't want us getting too close to that youngster. And just by moving her trunk around and getting a good sense of smell of us and just trying to gather as much information about us as possible. And I'm sure by now She has seen many, many vehicles, especially by the fact that we are so close. We're in the Kruger Park, but so close to Orpin Camp. And I'm sure she has realized the vehicles are no threat to her, as long as they keep a little bit of distance. So they've moved into the shade now again, from shade to shade. And underneath now a couple jackalberries, and there is another marula tree there as well. I wonder if that one has got some fruit in. Quick look.
As many of you know by now, one of our beloved leopard characters, Hukumuri, recently passed away. I would like to invite you to join me on Saturday the 20th of February as I take an intimate look into his life and pay tribute to the incredible cat that he was. I'm looking forward to seeing you around the fire at 7:30 p.m. Central African Time.
So in 1998, we had this idea to go and put a live web camera on a waterhole somewhere in the Sabi Sands next to the Kruger National Park. And I approached just about every single landowner, and everybody thought I was completely crazy until I met Yuri and Pippa Moorman.
We thought it was definitely a fun idea and a worthwhile thing to experiment.
And it immediately became a runaway success. And it gave people all around the world the opportunity to watch a little piece of Africa day and night. Back in 1998, it was the very early stages of the internet. And all we were able to do was to get a 30-second refreshing JPEG out of that camera. But over time, what we began to do is focus more and more on trying to develop this concept of giving people the opportunity to go on safari.
Even though we live just 500 meters up this hill, we still put the camera on to see what's happening.
Absolutely, we watch it ourselves.
My name is Taylor McCurdy and I work for Eco Training. I love hearing from all of the viewers. However, I particularly enjoy those of you who have been watching for a few years. Your questions are just so advanced and they really get me thinking. If you'd like to ask a question on Wild Earth, you need to register on our website. Once you've done that, head to the Live Safari page and submit your questions below the live feed.
This is a battle of two great carnivores of the African wilderness. Whew. Whoa! You don't want to be under those jaws. Definitely, this round goes to the lion. Look at that. Fantastic.
Expect the unexpected here on Wild Earth daily.
Welcome back, everybody. We've got a few very shy fellows up on the rocks here. A little family of baboons. They're up on the top of this little koppie here. Koppie, everybody, is basically a small head. So something that we don't find of much of them in June. We've got some in Torchwood. Little areas where the rock is exposed. Everything is eroded down around it, weathered down around it. And love little koppies like this. It's beautiful habitat for leopard, and this is in fact, I believe, is called a leopard koppie. The road anyway is, so quite excited that we're able to get some signal here. These areas, I love to work these areas where you get rocky outcrops with trees. And I work down in Singita Sabi Sands. All of the leopards used to den on these sort of exposed, or should I say, well-vegetated rocky outcrops. Obviously impossible to get up there with a vehicle, but with the camera we're able to really get a good vantage point. And essentially, rocky outcrops like this, I need to actually have a look at what geology it is. I haven't seen it. It's often granite. And if you've ever made yourself a smoothie or something with cocoa powder or cacao, and you get those little bubbles that don't break down properly in the liquid. Now, if you washed everything away, those little bubbles would remain there. And essentially, that's what granite corpus are. They're big bubbles of magma that came up underneath the Earth's surface and stopped shy of erupting onto the Earth's surface in the form of lava. And then we spoke about the Drakensberg Mountains earlier. That was all the way over here and was covering this landscape, but that entire mountain range eroded away all the way back to where it is today. So that's what created the Lowveld. And then these little balls of unbroken up or bubbles of cacao or cocoa powder are what remained as everything else eroded down around them. So it's very wonderful characteristic features around the African, or parts of South Africa, I'm sure around the world. And granite is some of the oldest rock we'll find. Lolly, we don't get olive baboons in South Africa purely because they are a species or subspecies of this same baboon. So we get the chakma here. And then up into Zambia, Malawi, we get the yellow baboon. And then in Kenya, we get the olive baboon. But they are pretty much the same in many, many respects. They've evolved to their area. So they're subspecies of each other, meaning that they are very, very much the same. But the climate, the terrain, maybe the food, slightly different. But in all other respects, they are very, very similar organisms. But a subspecies is generally defined as an organism that has changed. There's a geographical distance between them. And so there's a natural evolutionary change in what they look like, how their coloration and all that sort of thing. So they are very much all regarded as the savanna baboon. But they look very, very different in a coloration point of view. Up in the Mara, they seem to be a little bit more shaggy because the temperatures there are pretty constant, and so I think they get a little bit colder. Like if you ever remember David Gitu when he was down here or up in the Mara, he's always wrapped in a blanket. It's not that it's colder there than it is here, but the average temperatures are colder, so you don't get these sort of abilities to get used to the hotter and the colder, so everything's a little bit chilly. So that will do something to an animal's fur. And notice the hyenas up there also had shaggier coats versus the hyenas. So even the lions there seem to have more fur. But there's just a slight change in them, and so they are different species. I believe they are subspecies. I might be mistaken, but they are all regarded as the savanna baboon. So it's down in the south here we get the chakma all the way down to Cape Town. And then in Malawi, Zambia, we get the yellow, which are very, very yellow. And then the olive baboon looks very much more like this than the yellow does, but all have their differences. Okay, well, sounds like Hans has been tracking, and it sounds like he's had a bit of luck.
Shall I say, finally, we have got success with cheetah in the Kalahari. Can you believe it? So we've actually got a really nice cheetah population on Tuvalu Kalahari, as they do really well in these environments. But the sourgrass, as you can see, which is exactly where they are lying in at the moment, they have been coming to another sourgrass spot where we finally got blessed with the sighting. In this particular situation, as you can see, they just flopped down in a nice shady spot as we got them in this area. And it's a coalition of two brothers that we've been tracking over the last 2 days in this area, looking for them. But yeah, so cool that we finally got such an endangered species as from this particular kind, talking about the spotted cats. It's so special having this sighting like this. Now you can see they're sleeping, obviously, and I can assure you, because we have been tracking for a long time over the last 2 days, trying to find them, we will be coming back to them this afternoon, as we're going to try to see if we can get some more mobility on them and see if we can get them walking a bit this afternoon, see what they get up to. And if you know, who knows, we possibly could get to our third hunting sighting for this week. So beautiful seeing that boy's head actually coming up at the back. Candy, you're asking how often should these cheetah be looking for water? It is quite interesting, being also a cat or an animal that truly belongs to the Kalahari, alongside with the African wild dogs, the desert lions, etc., and so on as it goes. They benefit quite a lot from the carcasses that they consume on. So you'll find that they will continue going at big distances and big amounts, feeding on animals quite much bigger than the average cheetah would catch, because these are two big males and they have bloated in size. And so the thing is that if they do, again, partnerships happening in this condition, they can catch animals up to about the size of young eland. I've seen eland calves being caught by these cheetah coalitions, for instance, in the Kalahari. And we've got cheetah coalitions that reaches up to about 4 animals in a coalition as it is. But we're looking at about situations that, let's say the average typical red hartebeest, full-grown hartebeest has been caught. That would be a lot of nutrients that they could benefit from that. So let's say 2 carcasses in a week been consumed. Let's say 2 big carcasses. That would be like at least once for the week they need to get to a water point. But apart from that, let's say they've had 1 big carcass and 2 smaller carcasses for 1 week. You would say something like they get to a point of, yeah, you can say 2 times a week passing water points in their typical territorial areas. And say they haven't actually caught something for about 5 days, then it gets to a point that they would do 2 to 3 times a week. Did you hear that, Morgan? So how long would a whole family of cheetahs stick together was the question there. So it gets to a point that you could have... Walmart, you asked the question that of how long does cheetah families stick together. Now, this is quite an interesting question. You'll have, in the Kalahari, for instance, now you'll have normalities in Africa, and then you get the Kalahari, because the Kalahari animals function a bit different here due to the challenges that they face and whatsoever in the Kalahari. So you get, by normalities, you get a female cheetah with her cubs up to about 16 months as she raised them to adulthood as it comes through. And then after about close to, let's say, 20 months, she leaves, then she becomes solitary, and then that cheetah litter would stick together for, let's say, up to another 6 months, pushing it, then they'll eventually become solitary there as well. In the Kalahari, you get to a situation where that cheetah, I've seen cheetah mothers with their youngsters where they all look like adult cats, where you eventually at some point can't even dictate who's the mother or actually see who's the mother and then who's the youngsters, because they become almost more or less the same size. And the bottom line of that story is that it's crazy to see how long they walk together in the Kalahari due to teamwork, family units, partnerships. Again, it comes back to that. That is the way to survive. So it gets to a point, I've seen it over 3 years. I've seen it where a mother with youngsters walk together, and they just push their limits because they can. And so the interesting thing is also the likeliness of, let's say, a litter that's been born, and it's consisting of about 2 males, 2 females in that litter group. It could easily get to a situation where, like almost 100% chance that cheetah coalition would be born out of that 2 males and sticking together for the rest of their lives, as it's a pretty strong territorial structure as it comes through. It's so incredible to look at this environment. I mean, as Morgan's been zooming out on the picture, but you can actually see how much they're blending in and how easily you could actually drive past you and miss them completely in these conditions. Incredible. Just incredible. Now, looking at them in this particular environment, it is so cool to see how these cats blend in. Speaking of camouflage there specifically, with those beautiful solid spots that you can see on the body there. And that just makes them blending in completely with the grassy environment. to this environment over here. You can see these cats been walking long distance already as they're on super full-on relaxed mode happening here. And they're in a complete nice shady spot. So yeah, they're just now building that energy levels again for later on this evening when they should be getting up and mobile and active. But I can assure you we are going to come back this year. I can assure you we will definitely get back to them this afternoon, as it is. So there was a question just now, does cheetahs and leopards get along with each other? It's quite interesting when you look at cheetahs and well, any type of predators along with each other. You get two different types of competitions in the bush, and predators are all against each other. So the one is where you get intra-specific competition and inter-specific competition. So intra-specific competition is basically where you'll have, for instance, your cheetahs against cheetahs, wild dogs against wild dogs, and so they're all competing against each other. And then you get where you'll have, for instance, your inter-specific competition, where you'll have cheetahs against wild dogs against lions, hyenas against cheetahs, and so it is. So whenever predators, from big to small, bump into each other, it gets to a point that they will go into a bit of a battle. And it is what it is, unfortunately. You will get to a situation where the bigger predator will always be on the favoritism side, if I can put it that way, and the smaller one will always come, most of the time, badly off the picture. So cheetahs and leopards being in an inter-specific competition structure, it gets to a point that you will get to a situation that if the leopard, which is generally one of the few animals in the Kalahari where you don't really get to see them together a lot, you get young leopards walking together, but apart from that, they're very solitary animals. Still, that stays the same in the Kalahari conditions. But you're looking at cheetahs, on the other hand, as I've mentioned, how long they stick together and also having coalitions in that formation. Their survival rate and strength is much stronger as opposed to on smaller areas in Africa where cheetahs are occurring. So in these conditions, I've seen cheetah, 3 males chasing off leopards into trees. I've seen 2 males as big as this been chasing leopards off into trees. So it's quite interesting thinking about it, how this comes together in the thing of how this is so different as opposed to other destinations in Africa, because there are destinations where cheetahs by norm is existing in a solitary unity within their territorial structures. Obviously, cheetah females is the only one, even though you get these tough conditions in the green Kalahari environment, cheetah females are the only ones that are remaining for a short stint of time on their own. It's the time when they left their cubs finally, or those young sub-adults, young adults, if I can put it that way, and it goes into that time space where they have gone to about, let's say 3 months, 4 months or so has gone past, found a male, but the female finds, well, she falls into estrus pretty quickly, straight after she's left the cubs. And wherever she then urinates as she marks a territory and marking a scent all over the show, the males will immediately pick up in that given area that she is in the estrus and then be mated with pretty soon. Going through 95 days of gestation period, she's got cubs again and she's not alone. So she's got short stints of times. At maximum structures, you're looking at about maybe 6 to 7 months at a time. But she is so successful in what she does in her lifetime, especially in the Kalahari's ecosystem. But yeah, in smaller areas, cheetahs don't have to combine up as coalitions, because then there's too much to deal with at the same time. It's only happening mostly in larger areas where they live, where they're going to go into coalitions because it's just much better beneficially in that situation. So we're going to send you over to Trishala. She is quite on a mission.
I am on a mission. My mission is just enjoying the great weather, the warmth, and the blue sky. But I also saw a squirrel on this tree. Oh, it's right at the bend, Darren. I'm not sure if you can see it.
This bird one?
Yep. Hopefully it'll entertain us. Squirrels can be very, very entertaining, as we have discovered by the squirrel that is around camp. He's out of view at the moment. The squirrel around camp is just crazy. But he's also given us a crazy opportunity to understand squirrels, if one can say that. Come on, pop out for us. So I have learned Annie, I was just about to talk about that. Annie would like to know if it's true that that squirrels stash away nuts. I was going to say to you that I learned that from the squirrel at camp, and firsthand, I love when we learn stuff firsthand, that he does like to stash stuff, but not always nuts. He just likes to stash stuff. And when things are abundant, he doesn't stash anything. You know, if there's fruit around, or if he manages to find your mozzarella stick like he did one day, then he doesn't bother to stash anything. But when things are a little scarce, then he does stash. He found my mozzarella stick, ate it, and then slept for 12 hours, which I thought was quite cute. But obviously not the type of thing that you want a wild squirrel to be doing. So, no mozzarella sticks for him. So basically he eats fruits and nuts, and I don't think the squirrel is going to come out. Let me just start up and see what happens. No, nothing. I've also found that squirrels have this unique ability or unique depth of their sharp bit in their claw to just grab your dermis. Ooh, look at this guy. Now a praying mantis has decided to show itself. Hello, mantid. You look so robotic. That is one tiny mantid. He looks like quite a character. They have quite a fierce look about them. Yes, you clean those. I don't know if you've ever tried to catch a mantis. If you have, you know, one, how difficult it is, and two, how they have these backward pointing spikes or spines on their forearms that they twist back and grab you with if you're trying to grab them from the top, and then just kind of pierces your skin, and it's by far one of the most difficult insects to catch. Why was I catching praying mantises? Because that's the type of child I was. I would want to touch everything. Also, once I made an insect collection that required me to catch insects. Oh, I've also found out that the squirrel just loves moths. Oh, look at that. Whoa! That is speed. And a bit of a dance. Look at that, guys. You're getting speed and a dance. There's a proper display going on here. Maybe when I started talking about the squirrel, it knew that it was hearing about something that could eat it. And just like that, it is gone. Nice little segue, don't you think? I love the bush for that. It always does that. Just gives us something random, something to just pops out of nowhere. Love it. Love it. So as I was saying, plenty of things were learned about squirrels. The way they wrap up in a little ball and they sleep. Finally got to see that. Also, I don't know if you've ever seen that meme where it says about how awesome squirrels are because... Hello, Steenbokkie. No, don't. And it's gone. Because that's just what a Steenbok does. If you've ever seen that meme about squirrels and how squirrels are so awesome because when they land, they look like a superhero, that is also true. Not only does it land like that when they jump from one thing to another, but they also, when you give them a little tickle, they'll also look like a superhero landing on the ground. Cool stuff to be learned about squirrels. Anyway, I'm going to send you back over to Yuan and his prize of finding those wonderful cheetah.
Welcome back, folks. So as you can see, these animals have now gone completely flat. We've had a few times where one of the males have been lifting up his head, constantly looking around, trying to just see if there was any jackals potentially following them, as jackals are quite strong scavengers in the Kalahari. And so they often cheetahs and wild dogs get followed quite a lot in the Kalahari just because they are such top hunting successful killers and successful hunters in South Africa, well, in Africa. And the thing is that if you look at the ranking structures of that and why jackals make that decision is because wild dogs being the number one killer in Africa, second in line you get leopards and then cheetah. But cheetahs being on such a type of successive rate in the coalition formation like this, they could actually easily get to a point where they equalize with leopard successive rates, just because it's two successful hunters working as a partnership together, and this makes it so much more successful. Now, I know these cats are out for the count, but we, like I said earlier, we're for sure going to come back here this afternoon to get some more activity levels. I'm just so grateful that we got them, and that we could actually get a nice sighting as well of such a rare species for this afternoon as well. So a lot of times in the Kalahari, you got to do, if you didn't get the animals at the right time in the morning. Now, what do I mean with the right time? Obviously within the early morning hours, in the sense of the time when the activity levels are much higher and that sort of thing. You got to make the decision, either you abandon the tracks or you continue tracking and put the work in for the afternoon. And that is exactly what the situations were about this morning. So we've put some of the teamwork in this morning to find these cats. And I definitely think we're going to get a nice walking sighting possibly here this afternoon. And obviously, for those of you that's been following us for the last couple of days, it's actually, you would know what I'm talking about. We have been battling and having quite difficult conditions over the last couple of days with the wind blowing away their tracks, as well as making it quite difficult. And the stronger the wind, obviously, the more these guys tend to hide, tuck themselves deep into a bush. Even though they are in a savanna environment, they tend to find a nice bush, typically like this raisin bushes that they are sitting next to, and some of the camel thorns, and even the shepherd's trees in amongst this cluster of combination of bushes coming together here. Yeah, but you can see they're completely out for the count. You will get every now and again one boy looking around. Justin, you asking how often do you see sleeping cheetahs like this, if I can put it that way? If you do get cheetahs in the middle of the day and whatsoever, you will get them 90% of the time sleeping. Remember, they're still a cat, so cats do sleep a huge amount of the day, especially because their diet's being so high protein levels as it is. So it comes down to a situation that it is very important for them to sleep the right amount of hours for the day, but it is not the same amount as opposed to lions, for instance. Cheetahs, being a much more day active cat, they gotta have to mission a bit longer during the day, obviously to obviously get to the right possibilities of hunting some prey down and whatsoever. So yeah, thinking about the conditions, cheetahs, the first break of light, if it was a very dark moon night, first break of light, they will get going quite early in the morning, and way before the sun comes up, like at least 40 minutes, like literally that first crack of light during your twilight crepuscular times, dawn and dusk. They will hunt perfectly actually during those times, and if they haven't succeeded and they are quite hungry, they'll continue walking until this time roughly, which is very different as opposed to lions, for instance, or even some of your leopards and in the Kalahari, because it gets to a point that that heat factor is quite a thing to deal with in the Kalahari. But yet again, these are strong desert animals in this environment that's well adapted to these conditions. Gorgeous to see that stunning, beautiful amount of spots on the body there as we're looking at it. And it's even crazier if you think about the situation with the sourgrass. Kaylee, you're asking if these guys would groom each other the same way as lions would do. Yes, indeed. Being a solitary cat, it's actually quite uncommon behavior most of the time for cheetah being solitary. So if you think about the conditions and situations, tactile communication is extremely important for these guys to actually like show that touching to each other. And it's nothing to do with being acting funny or anything. It's literally just showing mutual respect to each other. And they do a lot of allo grooming, as they would basically groom each other. And that just keeps the bonds strong in amongst the coalition as well. You get that same type of grooming with a mother with her cubs as well. The interesting thing is these brothers take care of each other so well that I would almost go as far as saying they care more for each other as opposed to what they would care for a typical female, for instance. So as I was saying with the sourgrass, as you can see, as we've been talking about it over the last couple of days, you can see this in the foreground being highlighted so much in the sun, actually. It's quite interesting looking at it as it is. They've just been covered in these sourgrasses. So the sourgrass, as we spoke about it yesterday morning, it only occurs in certain areas and certain savanna disturbed areas. And you do have a few areas where you get chunks of it. But like I've mentioned the first day, Tuvalu is quite recovered on the sourgrass point of view. There's not much sourgrasses remaining in like at least over 60% of the reserve. There's some few areas where in the dunes where they're covering. But yeah, they also don't stick too long into this green formation. They move out after 3 months or so. And they lose their nutritional value pretty quickly, actually. Now, it doesn't say sourgrass if it's just being in this condition that it's just bad, if it's just having the name sourgrass. If the Kalahari gets to conditions as well where the nutritional value drops in a drought formation, for instance, and thus grasses might be the last remaining dry grasses, it will be most probably one of the last grasses remaining in a certain area like this, because there's nothing that'll feed on it actually at given times and whatsoever. But if it gets to a point where there's a drought, and this is the last food resource bin, if I can put it that way. So animals will still, at the end of the day, in a dry condition, feed on it. Lucy, you're asking an interesting question. What is the population of cheetah in Tswalu Kalahari? Lucy, plenty of reserves where you go to in Africa. You ask the question, how many cheetah do you have? And you would, because it's an endangered species, and it's always interesting to know. And most of these reserves, because they are endangered species, you would get the answer from the guide, for instance, saying, yeah, we've got 4, we've got 6, we got potential 3. So we've got an astonishing number that's progressed over the years of at least well over 20 to 30 animals on the reserve. So we got a really big cheetah population. Brutally honestly, there are so many different cheetah on the reserve, we actually don't really know what is the exact count of these cheetahs. We do try to monitor as much as possible, but before we know it, there's another batch of new cubs and a random female that we have not even seen yet. You see, Tswalu, because it's so massive, like we're talking about in comparison, roughly almost the size of the country Luxembourg. So it is like a small country we're literally driving on here. So it's almost impossible to know if you're looking at the year in, year out cheetah cub populations that comes on. It's almost impossible to say the amounts, because to count them by a helicopter in the air, yeah, they generally would hide under bushes. So the only way is to track every single track that you find of a cheetah on this reserve. And that's the only way you would actually be able to say, okay, there's this and this amount of cheetah exactly. But the good thing is the population has picked up so much on Tswalu due to fantastic conservation that's been happening over the years on the reserve, that we've been having a really good population incline. The sad thing about cheetah populations in South Africa, for instance, is their numbers have unfortunately come down. And there's an astonishing number of literally about roughly around 1,000 cheetahs left in this country and the world. It fluctuates quite a lot as the population inclines, but then decreases again at certain times again as well. Their numbers have gone down due to land loss of habitat as well. But yeah, it's a good thing that our population as we know it is definitely inclining for sure.
It's no secret that nature can heal. Some of our Wild Earth viewers are finding solace in the outdoors close to their homes during lockdown.
This is how I keep myself busy during lockdown. Beautiful little jumping spot.
I love walking in the open spaces near my home. Provides a moment of peace in a crazy world.
This is my fire escape with some of the birds I get to see. That's what it's like in New York City during lockdown.
Being in nature helps me to cope with the challenges of life and helps me to be humble and grateful.
It's magical watching everything turn into a winter wonderland as the snow softly falls.
Been doing lots of walking, dog walking, outside at parks.
This is my Ridgeback Drake. Our little slice of paradise is a provincial park called Hopewell Ross.
Connecting with nature is critical to stay positive during these tough times. Wild Earth encourages you all to find time to escape to nature.
The reason why we see that wildebeest by himself is because he's a male, or a bull, as we typically would call him. And what he does is that he marks and defends an area. Essentially, he is looking for the ultimate piece of land or prime property. Needs to have good grazing, needs to have a water source close by. And not too far away from here, there's a sickle bush thicket that would provide just enough shelter from the wind and the rain.
My name is Lauren, and I'm currently working in Djuma Private Game Reserve here in South Africa. I love answering your questions during the live safaris. It's my favorite part. It feels like you're on the vehicle with me, and I'm able to teach you exactly what you want to know. If you want to ask a question on Wild Earth, then you need to register on our website. Once registered, you must go to the live safari page and ask your question below the live feed.
Looks like it's a very difficult climb because every time it tries to climb, the ground is breaking, so it slides down. But it's the only one. Look at that. That is a call of desperation with a cub. It's like, what are you doing, mommy? Oops! Oh!
Expect the unexpected here on Wild Earth daily.
Welcome back, folks. So we have, as you can see, there's been more activity happening again where this one male of the two brothers have just been looking around and just trying to figure out if there's, just making sure, because it's very important for them to keep on making sure that these jackals have not followed them, as we mentioned earlier. But also, as our spotted hyena population have been picking up lately, we also need to, well, they also need to make sure about that the spotted hyenas haven't been following them around. Brown hyenas do not really do that type of behavior, actually, unless there's a carcass that has been around for a day or so, but constantly they're going to be checking out for those, shall I say, lousy followers that it's almost like a cheerleading squad, just cheering them up for a potential kill. It's quite interesting when the jackals are teaming up, as they, I believe they sometimes quite a bit of a coward type of animal, the jackals, when it gets to that point where they team up, like they agree, okay, we're going to team up against these cheetah to take over a carcass potentially, and that sort of thing, and then they get to a situation where they eventually, let's say, maybe pushed off a mother cheetah and cubs off her carcass. And the next moment, you get to a situation where those jackals are in a mindset of every man for himself. And then they start biting each other if they've won the carcass over. And then literally start just trying to steal chunks of meat from the carcass as it is. But yeah, interesting situations we find sometimes in the Kalahari. It's literally just two patches of spots we're literally coming across the grass there. They're literally tucking themselves in so much deeper in this spot. So we're definitely going to hope for a bit of a better shot this afternoon. It's very nice actually just seeing them, as I've mentioned earlier. But yeah, we're going to most probably have a bit better light this afternoon. So folks, that will most probably bring us pretty close to the end of the show this morning. It has been a pleasure to be with you this morning again, and especially even with the short stint of meerkats that we had this morning, and just being able to see this gorgeous cheetah males, which we're definitely going to be continuing with this afternoon. And we are inviting you to another fantastic show this afternoon, and it will be at 4 o'clock this afternoon. And fantastic welcoming you back this afternoon.